Well, this is new. All right. Welcome to my humble abode. See if anyone else is joining. Looks like we got a few people in here, about 10, 12-ish. Hello. So, I don't know how many people are going to join. This was kind of a last-minute type of thing. But I'm going to be filming all the content for the Red Bull video, well, as much as I can tonight. I have to be starting to wrap things up around, excuse me, around 9 o'clock, so about 3 hours from now for me. So, yeah. Hopefully that's not a sign of what's to come. Just me sneezing for the next 3 hours. Okay, so don't know how much people really care about all this type of stuff, but this is kind of how I've been doing things, at least for this and the Coca-Cola video. So let me see if I can get a little closer to the camera, maybe block out that light there. Yeah, it's probably fine. So for most of my videos before the Coca-Cola video, they were mostly just chemistry things or high voltage things, and it was just kind of however it happened. Like I would have a camera, I would film the synthesis or whatever I was doing, and that basically be it. For the Coca-Cola video and now the Red Bull video, it's more of a it has more whatever they call them, like the other scenes, the B-roll, that they have more B-roll involved. So whereas with a synthesis, I can just, do a step and film it. With this kind of thing, I kind of have to plan beforehand all of those other little tiny shots that you wouldn't think of, like, say, I don't know, just having a Red Bull can with another Red Bull can. That's basically the first scene I'm going to be doing. So for the Red Bull video and for the Coca-Cola video, I basically started out kind of like a shot list, essentially. And I actually have the one here for the Coca-Cola video. It's all very crude since I'm the only one using it. Doesn't really matter if it's like absolutely perfect, but this is kind of what went into the Coca-Cola video. So first scene of me pouring the drink and then looking into it, knocking over the Coca-Cola bottle in it, saying big deal behind it and added in letters. So yeah, just things like that. And then I'd go through and check things off or X things out entirely. I guess this was a scene that I planned to do, but just didn't end up being necessary. So yeah, fairly crude, but just enough to give me an idea of what I need to do for the video. And then once I have all the clips compiled, then I can, start editing. I should, at the same time, I also will probably be doing voiceover type stuff, like getting the mic. I think, well, it's behind the big light back there, but on this chair. Oh, there it is, right there. I won't be doing that right now. Tonight's just going to be all that Red Bull filming type stuff, but I will also have to take some time at some point to record the audio. Let me see if I can look over some of these comments here, just in case anybody's asked something while I've been yapping. Let's see. KFC video. I've seen that a few times. If you want a good, I don't know what the word would be, example of that, or a good video to cover that topic, check out Glenn and Friends Cooking. He's actually already done that, and apparently he's done a pretty close job of it. It doesn't really fit into the type of thing that I would be doing. I mean, the drinks are more doable for what I am involved in, if that makes any sense. because I can use things like mass spectrometry and chemistry more or less to, put these drinks together. And there's chemicals that are involved. Like for Red Bull, I don't want to spoil too much, but there are a few chemicals I have to synthesize in order to get this flavor, just because I can't buy them. Flavors that I just can't buy. One of them, I guess I can mention, that's fairly important to the flavor, is a chemical called diethyl succinate. You can laugh all you want at the name, but it's just a ester of ethyl alcohol and succinic acid, and I had to go through and synthesize that. So that kind of adds that sort of musty, like dry apple type flavor to it. I don't know if anyone here has been obsessively tasting Red Bull like me, but that's kind of where that flavor comes from. But yeah, that's one of the key flavors. But anyway, back to what I was saying about KFC. The KFC recipe, I mean, I guess there's like some types of things you can do. I know that Mass Spec Everything, who's kind of helped with a lot of these projects, he's another YouTube guy. You should go check him out. He did some mass spectrometry type stuff involving the proteins in meat. So I guess you could do something like that for KFC chicken, although I'm pretty sure it's just chicken. There's not really much. Well, I mean, unless we're exposing them as like having something that's not chicken in there. But I don't think that's really a concern yet. So yeah, it'd mostly just be messing with the basic spices and things like that. So not as much what I'm doing. There's not really much chemical analysis that would go into it that I'm aware of. If that answers that question. So let me look through here a little more. Oleum Prana guy is live. Yeah, that was a fun video to make. I need to do some more of that type stuff, because that video did really well, and also it was not terrible to make. So that's really the best kind to make. Red Bull in that is great, but taking 6 months, like this one, 7 months to make, it's a lot. But yeah, the Oleum one, that one was a good one. I need to do more chemistry type things like that. I just need to find the ones that people want to watch, because the most recent chemistry one that I did was making taurine for Red Bull, and it only got like 40,000 views. I thought taurine would be a clickable title sort of thing, but I guess not. So sometimes it's a bit of a mixed bag of what people want to watch and what people don't want to watch. So I'm willing to do things that people won't watch as much. Obviously, I've done a lot of tornado chasing type stuff. Check out my other channel, LabCoatz. But yeah, you do kind of, whenever you've gotten a channel as big as LabCoatz has become, can't believe I'm saying that now. It feels like only a few years ago I was 5,000 subscribers. But yeah, once you get a channel this big, you kind of want, people to like what you're putting out, because if you don't, then, well, nobody views it. And you want people to check out your stuff if it's cool. Yeah, Glenn and Friends made a good KFC series. Let's see. Anything else before I start filming? Somebody said methylcinnamate and ionone. Yeah, those are two flavors that are components of Red Bull. The methylcinnamate and particularly alpha ionone. Beta ionone wasn't detected, although in tests, the flavors are so similar that, if you really need to, you can use beta ionone in place of it. It just has a more intense fruit type flavor, whereas the alpha ionone is a little more floral. They're both floral, but alpha ionone's more floral. So I'll be sure to check back in with comments here, but got to film some stuff. So first scene here, just wake back up. There we go. Just the Red Bull can, and then putting the Red Bull can in. And we'll see how this goes. This is just kind of my setup that I use for basically all the LabCoatz videos. Most of the time, I mentioned it before. I don't know how often I've mentioned it to the general public, but I recently graduated and I've moved to a new location. So normally this would all be set up in my garage back at my home in central Oklahoma. Now I'm in northern Oklahoma and in this little tiny one-person house. So that's kind of where things are happening at the moment. I'm sure I'll have to move again here in the next month or two, but you know, this will do. But yeah, I've got same backdrop since day one, same lights since day one. New camera though. I got the camera in the last year. Yeah, I think it was this year that I got this camera. It's actually a decent camera that can shoot in 4K. So no more upscaling 1080p video to 4K for videos. So that's great. Just a little fun fact before I begin. You might see a little bit of a hole right here in the backdrop. That was an accident on a video I shot a long time ago, the resinifer toxin video, the world's spiciest substance. During that synthesis, the garage door was up and a gust of wind knocked it over very gently, but still knocked it over onto the hot plate. So it melted a nice big hole in it. And yeah, it's been there ever since. All right, I better start filming stuff. Otherwise, I'm not going to get anything done. I know that I've said that it's been busy moving around and stuff, and that's the reason why things haven't been getting done. That's part of the reason. The other part is I'm terrible at procrastination. So most of it involved just writing this script thing because it was a lot. I think the document, the Word document that I have all of the script, essentially the voiceover stuff, I think that's up to 16 pages at this point. So looking at probably another 20 to 30 minute long video. Yeah. All right. Make sure it's all focused. Now we just let it record for a second so I can add in stuff later. I'm not going to tell you what, but you know, overlay type things. That's probably good. Scene number 1. Procrastination brings great results, though. Yeah, it can. Although in my case, you know, you see a lot of YouTubers that are a lot. They at least look based on their videos like they're a lot better about actually sitting down and doing the things that they're passionate about. For me, I've got a bit of ADHD, and when it comes down to something like this, I'm excited and I do it, but at the same time, if I do it for too long, it's kind of like, this is fun. What else can I do? So the moment that it starts becoming a little bit long-winded or a little more work-like, it tends to not be very good for me and my work. So you'd think I'd be getting a lot more done in essentially a one-person cabin in the middle of the woods, but this is the first I've been shooting. Okay, let's see what next. Not you, but maybe, yeah. You can get a paper towel. Let's see. Okay. Got this out of the fridge, so it's got a little condensation on it. It's been out for a while, so it should be warmed up a little. All right. Yeah, deadline helps. It does help. Although whenever you're the one making the deadlines, it's very easy to make the executive decision to push the deadline back. That's what I've learned. Do I have ADHD? Yes, I do. Yep. Okay. Yep. All right. Next scene. All right. Well, okay. Come on. All right. Let me just delete that. I had trouble getting the tab up on the can with these gloves on. For this scene, I'm just opening the can. So I need something, I need to grab it. Okay. That should do it. Well, that's great. Now I have an open can of Red Bull and about 4 hours until I'm supposed to go to sleep. I have to wake up early for internship. This isn't a small one either. This is the 16-ounce Red Bull. So I'm not going to be drinking that right now. I don't know where to put it. I guess I'll just put it in the fridge. Well, yeah. Okay. Oh, well, I have to pour it. I have to pour it for the next scene. Okay. Got to buy some glasses. I didn't like the ones that I had on hand, so I want something a little more appealing looking, I guess, or I don't know. it's hard to pick one, like pick a glass to pour Red Bull in. I don't think a lot of people pour Red Bull. I think they just drink from the can. I think that'll do. I'm just realizing I might need to clean these. Let me check comments real quick. Let's see. Red Bull in powder form. Well, that'd be a cool idea, but unfortunately, most of the flavors are liquids. So I don't really know if you could make a powdered Red Bull. I think Now Red tried to do that recently. I think he had like a dehydrator or something, and he tried to dehydrate Red Bull. Or maybe I think that was beer. I think he did it with beer. He might have also tried to do it with Red Bull at some point, but it's a fool's errand. You can't have powdered Red Bull. And if you can, then maybe the flavor is a lot weaker. I don't know. Who else is drinking an ice cold Red Bull while watching? Hopefully people who aren't about to go to sleep. All right. Better clean this out. 7:20 a.m. in Australia. Well, good morning. I remember I did like well, it wasn't a live stream. I did a video call with Tom from Explosions and Fire one time for the fluorine video, if y'all remember that. And I remember the time difference was interesting because I had to figure out when he was available, when I was available, and pretty much when I was available was early in the morning. He was available more towards the evening, if I recall correctly. Either that or I did it later in the afternoon and he was up late. I can't remember which it was. No, because the sun was up where he was. Yeah. All right. Need to do collabs with some of those people like Tom from Explosions and Fire. That'd be fun. I don't know what we would do. I'd love to work on like explosives and stuff, like all the fun little tetrazoles and other specialty explosives. But I take it from the people that I know. I don't know if they want me mentioning their names, but I know some YouTube chemistry people that unfortunately were rated, not recently, more like in the last 5 years or so, I think, but they got rated over making, milligram quantities of tetrazoles and explosives like that. They weren't arrested or anything, but yeah, they got a lot of their stuff seized, and, the government's a bit of a bunch of dummies sometimes. They can do things that aren't always intelligent, we shall say. Tend to overreact a little bit. I'm happy to say, in case anyone's wondering, based on that, no, I have not had any run-ins with, well, I shouldn't say I haven't had any run-ins with law enforcement, because there was the time with the thioacetone where they thought that there was a gas leak, but I've never been rated over any of my chemistry stuff. Like nobody thought I was making drugs or explosives or anything. Mostly because I wasn't. Well, making the legal analog of meth. That was, I guess, a drug, but you can buy it at Walmart because it's a decongestant. It's not something that you typically find on the streets like you would meth. So I don't know who needs to know that, but you know now. Come on. All right. Let me look back at the comments a little bit. Professional and cinematic. That's kind of the vibe, I guess. Whenever I started off LabCoatz, I didn't know if I wanted to go more like explosions and fire type route, like more handheld, uh, raw look, I guess, or more like what I ended up with. And I ended up going this way because I think is kind of always why I wanted was a little more sleek and professional look, but also I feel like I saw a lot of, at least at the time that I was coming out. This was before some of the bigger chemistry YouTubers came out, like Chemolius and Chemdelic and some of the other ones. At the time, it was mostly just Nerd Rage and Nile Red, and then there's a bunch of other smaller ones. But for the most part, a lot of the smaller ones seemed like they were more like Tom's vibe, like handheld, like just uh, seemed like usually it was like a grandpa in his shop kind of doing his thing. That's a lot of the vibe that I got early on. So I kind of wanted to do, something more recognizable as like, higher quality, Nile Red type stuff. That's kind of the vibe that I wanted to go for. I don't think there's anything wrong with either of the routes visually, but this is the one that I liked for my content. I do kind of want some more of the explosions and fire type vibe maybe in the future, like just do some more basic handheld type stuff, just because I think it'd be fun to just do a quick and easy chemistry over the weekend, just film it all handheld. But it might, I don't know. At this point, with my channel size, LabCoatz is a fairly large channel, don't get me wrong, but it's not quite at the size that you would need for those kinds of like newer videos to really take off. So if I deviate too much from what my usual content is, or even just do some of my usual content, sometimes it doesn't always get the best views. So I'm not like a lot of other YouTubers that I know, at least in terms of, view maxing, perhaps would be the term. I don't go into a project thinking, well, I mean, I do think about that, like, oh, this is giving me a cool video that people would want to watch. I do think about that but I'm not like assessing every bit of like the analytics tab or anything like that to try and squeeze the most out of the video. I'm doing most of what I do just for the sake of, having some fun, doing what I would want to see on YouTube. And I guess in a way, kind of answering my own questions, like the Oli and Prana solution video, that one was, I'd always wondered what would happen with that. People say that, high concentration Prana solution can explode. So, I wanted to see what it was all about. It didn't explode in this case, thankfully, but, maybe I'll need to come back to it sometime in the future, scale it up a little bit. But yeah. It's back. All right. 30 minutes and 3 scenes down. I don't know if I'm going to finish tonight. Let's see. I'm going to burn through the battery. Look at the comments here. Don't drink the yellow bowl. Part of me thinks that's probably a joke, and part of me thinks that might be referring to the actual yellow flavor that they have at the store, if they have one. I know they have red and blue, and I've seen a bunch of color flavors of Red Bull. But I'm guessing don't drink the yellow bowl might be referring to something not found on store shelves. Let's see. Malic acid, tartaric acid, lactic acid, and citric acid are the 4 you use in your drink all the time. Which ones you using to make the bitter flavor? Well, none of the acids really impart a bitter flavor to the drink. The bitterness almost entirely comes from, actually, I think it does entirely come from the caffeine. But in terms of the acids used here, it's all just citric acid. You can see it on the label. So, well, I can see it on the label. There you go. It's just citric acid balanced with sodium bicarbonate and magnesium carbonate to get a pH of about 3.35-ish. That's kind of what we're doing here. Oh yeah, sour. Yeah, so it is just citric acid. I guess you could use those other ones and get a different sort of profile. I know that citric acid, comparing it to phosphoric acid, which is what I use to make the Coca-Cola replica and some other drinks along the way, the flavor is a lot different. Like citric acid, if you mix it into a drink and you don't do the right things, it comes across as citrusy. It feels almost like lemonade, which is, I don't want to give away too much about the video, but that is a problem that I ran into when trying to do the caffeine-free Red Bull. So if you take out the caffeine and its distinct flavor and bitterness, you end up with something that tastes like a weird version of lemonade, which is a prop that I got for recording today. Lemonade, because that's what Red Bull tastes like if you just take out the caffeine. It tastes like a strange version of lemonade because the citric acid really makes it feel like a citrus thing. If I use phosphoric acid, interestingly enough, if anyone here has had the soda Big Red, one of my early tests with trying to make Red Bull, just a very quick throw together type thing, I didn't have citric acid yet, so I used phosphoric acid. And even though Big Red, the soda, doesn't use phosphoric acid, it uses citric acid, the flavor that I got was almost the exact same as Big Red. So I thought that was interesting. Just a little tidbit there. Phosphoric acid is a lot stronger, though. Yeah, citric acid is a weak acid. I think phosphoric acid is also technically a weak acid, but it is a lot stronger. So let's see. Ascorbic acid. Yeah, ascorbic acid. That's so kind of as like a little tangent from my Red Bull's going to go flat before I get back to it. But as a little side quest while I was working on this Red Bull project, I kind of wanted to see how healthy I could make a Red Bull variant. And one of the things I thought of was, replacing some of the citric acid with ascorbic acid, which is vitamin C. So the conclusion I came to was basically that if you've ever been down the health aisle at Walmart and you've seen the little packs of Emergency, the little drink mixes that taste like orange, that's basically everything that I was going for, essentially, which was, all the vitamins, minerals like iron, potassium, just all that stuff, but also cramming it into a thing that tastes like Red Bull, basically. That's kind of what I ended up playing around with. It's not going to make it in the video, but I did play around with that. And I got like some amino acids and just a bunch of things that I thought would make it healthier without changing the flavor at all. There were like one or two things that I bought that tasted really weird. I think the amino acid threonine, or I think that's the one. I'm pretty sure it might have been another one, but yeah, it totally threw off the flavor. But a lot of them didn't, so that's interesting. Just if anyone from Red Bull's watching, cool idea. Maybe add even more vitamins and stuff to your drink. Could be a cool idea. Let's see. Check one or two more comments, then I'll get back to filming like I'm supposed to. Electrolyte powder, yeah. Tartaric acid and succinic acid are closer in acidity to citric acid. Probably, yeah. Although I think since I had succinic acid when I made diethyl succinate for the flavor, I think I tasted a little bit of it, and the flavor of succinic acid is different. I think it's like a little bit almost salty or savory. It's kind of weird. All right. Better start filming before my Red Bull gets flat. Well, flatter. Okay. Do I need this anymore? I don't think so. I need the bottle of my Lab Cola that I made for the Coca-Cola replication video. And I think I left that at my other home. So I might have to film this next scene later. I'll check my stuff, but yeah, I think I'm gonna have to film that scene later. Gotcha. Yeah. Oh well. Let's see. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Check back here. Yeah, stevia. That's whenever I was trying to do like the healthy version of Red Bull, I kind of looked into some artificial sweeteners, but stevia and monk fruit, they weren't exactly. Whenever I mixed them in, the taste wasn't exactly redeemable, in my opinion. Uh, I guess you could get used to it, but it's definitely has a interesting flavor, more metallic almost. Um, Probably the best one that I found is Neotame, or well, I tried sucralose. Sucralose was okay, but I need to try Neotame. I used it a little bit, but it's honestly probably the healthiest for you because you only require like sub milligram amounts essentially, as if I remember correctly. Yeah, very tiny amounts, and you can replace the sweetness. The thing is, going completely artificial sweetener isn't always isn't always the best. So there were some studies that were done, and apparently going 0 calorie can lead to obesity issues comparable to if you had just the sugar or high fructose corn syrup or whatever the sweetener is that has calories in your drink of choice, because it tricks your body into thinking, hey, there's sugar coming in. So it sends a signal to try to digest something that's not there, and it leads to cravings, and then you typically end up eating more, and that can lead to problems. So the best solution overall, it seems, is to kind of cut it a little bit, like maybe 50% sugar and 50% artificial sweetener of your choice. It also helps with the texture. Like if you go just artificial sweetener, then unless you add something else, maybe like xanthan gum, something to thicken it up, it tends to feel very thin. So just some things you have to think about. Let's see. Let me check any more. Someone's asking about meth. I'm happy to say I've never had meth. I don't intend to. Let's see. Most fun you've ever had at chemistry? Let me see. Well, that's a good question. Sometimes the most fun is kind of a corny answer, but I'll give it anyway. I'll also give the right answer, but the corny answer is sometimes the most fun is whenever you think of a new idea. Like one of the ones I recently thought of that I really want to try is making a Fischer-Tropsch reactor, or Tropsch. I don't know how you pronounce it. But essentially you take syngas, which is a mixture of carbon monoxide and hydrogen, which you can create from carbon and water, essentially. You take that syngas and you pass it over a catalyst, and it produces essentially, if you have the conditions dialed in, it can create essentially gasoline. So I thought that'd be a really fun video idea. I know someone else has already done a Fischer-Tropsch reactor. I'd like to do it bigger. If possible, I'd like to run a car off at least some level of this stuff. Homemade gasoline, essentially. And not like in the way that the easy way. The easy way is just to get plastic and heat it up until it decomposes into a bunch of hydrocarbons. But, let's do that. No, I've got a fun idea involving that. I don't want to give it away because you never know who's listening. Somebody might try to do it, and I'm notoriously slow, I would say. So I'm gonna keep my mouth shut on where that's going. But most fun I've had at chemistry, probably, doing thioacetone for the first time and those smelly chemicals. Those were really fun because nobody dared to go near them. Nobody wanted anything to do with selenium or thioacetone. But yeah, getting to see those and handle those before Nile Red. Nile Red never did anything with selenium, as far as I know. But he did do thioacetone about 6 months after I did it, which is how the channel actually got its first boost from like 5,000 subscribers to 30,000. Was he mentioned the channel on his thioacetone video at the end. So that was fun. But most fun, that's up there. I think the trophy will have to go to, unless I can think of something else, the synthesizing the legal analog of methamphetamine, hydromethamphetamine, otherwise known as propylhexedrine or Benzodrex. That one was really fun because it was a long, multi-step reaction. There was lots of steps you had to get right. There were lots of testing and things. The Coca-Cola video was fun, but it didn't have as much chemistry for me. There was, the tests like the mass spectrometry, but overall it was kind of chemistry deficient, I would say. But yeah, the legal analog of meth, that one was fun because it was, there was a whole bunch of hype surrounding meth. And, even though this is a completely legal chemical, it's not significantly abused or for its psychoactive purposes. It's, it's related to that chemical and, it's got some hype around it. So it was interesting to tackle it and see how it actually could be synthesized. Also, the fun behind that one was because I had to essentially make up the synthesis route. There wasn't a predetermined set of steps for the way that I wanted to go about making it. So I kind of had to go from scratch, essentially. Go look at like how they make the real stuff and then sub in the chemicals that would be necessary to make what I wanted. So for that reason, that one was probably one of the most fun, although, hopefully I can top it. The super caffeine one, that one was also fun, although it had a predetermined set of steps. But that one was fun too. It was very simple though. The chemistry behind that probably wasn't the most exciting, but getting all crystallized out, that was kind of fun. Hope that answered the question very thoroughly. Let me see. Okay. Can we synthesize sugar instead of car fuels? I don't know. I thought about synthesizing some of those high intensity sweeteners, but I think Chemoleus kind of covered that already. It'd basically be like taking aspartame and making it into neotame, maybe. That was the first thing I kind of thought of in that vein. I guess I could synthesize sugar, maybe. I'd have to really look into how that's done, but in theory, it's possible. Might go from like cellulose, like breaking. I think that. Oh yeah, it would be like what Now Red did. So I guess that's kind of already been done. But yeah, he broke down cellulose from cotton balls to make cotton candy. He took the cellulose, broke it down to glucose, and then I think he heated it up and it turned into sucrose. I have to look back at the video. But yeah, that was kind of done already. I don't have a problem doing things that are already done, but if I can do something original and super unique, that I'd like to do that. Let's see. How do you select your next project? Well, honestly, I've got a bit of ADHD. We kind of mentioned that before, but it tends to be if I'm sitting around at my desk doing something, typing away, and I think of something or I see something, like in the case of the Fischer-Tropsch reaction, seeing like, oh, you can take hydrogen and carbon monoxide and turn it into gasoline. Well, gasoline's a really useful thing. People want to see how they can make that, especially now with gas prices being horrible. So, and carbon monoxide and hydrogen, those are super easy to make. So, if I could find like a cool way to make those and put that through that process and get gasoline out, then I could say, I turned this into gasoline. So, something like that tends to be how I get an idea for a project. Other times, there's certain things that I just really want to do, like chasing tornadoes, building tornado probes. That was just kind of something that I was doing anyway, so I figured I'd make a video about it. The video didn't do very well, but I did it. So yeah, let's see. Anything else before I pretend to be responsible? Yeah. All right. What's the next thing? Okay, that's right. I need to. Come on. Okay. think that'll work. Although, this one's going to be a little trickier. Rebel has installed protective measures to prevent me from filming their cams. Because they're reflective, it kind of messes up the shots. So I'm going to need to get creative with how I'm positioning the camera to avoid the reflections. Let me see. Actually, a lot of that reflection was just coming from that, so taking that away should help a lot. Well, maybe if I put it further back too. Okay, let me see. Okay, I think that'll work. Okay. Let me adjust the backdrop real quick. Okay. There, that fixed it. There, you can see on the backdrop there's some like darker areas off the side. If it's framed up a little weird, it tends to show up on the screen like as like darker on the sides. So I got to bring it closer so that it's just this nice matte area with no changes in coloration or darkness, brightness. Problem now is that side looks a little brighter. Let me see. I think that will do it. Okay. 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 Is this just going to be the B-roll? Oh, I guess maybe. I'm not. Well, in theory, if I get far enough along through this, I might be mixing up some of the Red Bull, but a lot of this is B-roll type stuff. So if you have questions about the recipe or I guess anything else, I'm happy to answer. But yeah, a lot of this is just B-roll type shots. What adrenaline rush trick with optional survivability are you going to film to prove that your formula also gives wings? Well, I wanted to film the drink in front of a tornado, but the problem is tornadoes are very hard to predict, and they don't always happen where you think they're going to happen. So we saw several tornadoes this year on the various chases that we went on, but often enough, whenever we got to the tornado, there wasn't always time to pull out the camera and do like a shoot with essentially the Red Bull stuff. So that was the plan, but I don't think we're gonna manage this time. Maybe whenever I tackle a super caffeine again, like another super analog of caffeine, then I'll try to pack one up then, or maybe I'll do Monster Energy at some point. Although I'm sure Monster has like stunt stuff that they do for their commercials, right? I haven't seen a Monster commercial that I'm aware of. Okay. For the next scene, I'm going to need the caffeine. I bought a lot of caffeine. One second. There you are. Oh, they changed their bag size. They've changed the size of the bag since my last kilogram of caffeine, but this is what 1 kilogram or 2.2 pounds of caffeine looks like. Carolina Chemical. They sell a lot of interesting substances, some of which I don't know if they should be selling, but you know, their caffeine is caffeine. I'm not going to complain. Yep. It's only one though. See, the bag was a bit bigger before. This is the other kilogram of caffeine. So 2 big bags of white powder. That's not suspicious at all. Well, at least it's labeled. So if we get raided, it says caffeine. I don't think we're getting raided though. Let's see. Any other comments? What would happen if you ate a spoon of it? I don't know how much would be in a spoonful. I think, well, that's probably a few grams at least. Well, that might be 5 or more grams. You'd be having a very bad day. I don't know. It might not be lethal. Emphasis on might, but you wouldn't be very happy. So compared to other stimulants like, say, amphetamines or cocaine, as far as I can tell, caffeine doesn't cause any sort of euphoric, happy feelings. It's pretty much just a stimulant, and it also works on your heart a lot. It's a very dirty stimulant. So if you have too much of it, it doesn't make you feel happy. It makes you feel like you're going to die, probably. Somebody says, I wouldn't snort caffeine, easy to overdose. A funny story, I've never snorted caffeine, but there was a time whenever I was working on it, and I essentially rubbed my nose at some point after the process, and I still had some caffeine on it. And as I was driving home from something, then I noticed I was a little bit more buzzed than usual, more caffeinated. And I remembered that. I'm like, oh, that's why. So yeah, don't snort caffeine. It will go into your system and it will cause caffeine effects. Is there any caffeine limits over there in the United States? I don't. Well, there's some restrictions involving it. Like if you're selling a food product, I think there's like a limit on it by the FDA. Like you can't have more than this much because people can have issues with having too much caffeine. If they think if they think this little supplement they're taking is totally fine, then they might scoop a whole bunch of it to show how macho they are and end up having a few grams of caffeine in their system and either end up in a hospital or dead. So there are limits to how much caffeine you can put in a food product. I'm going to be selling samples of the concentrate to make Red Bull. In that case, the workaround is just making very clear that what you're selling is not intended for human consumption. In my case, it's officially for research or novelty purposes. So, and either way, it's also true that in its pure form, no, you should not consume its pure form like the concentrate because it would have way too much caffeine. I think the samples are going to be enough to make 10 liters of Red Bull, and I think 1 liter is 320 milligrams. So 10 times that's 3.2 grams. That's a bad time. So the workaround is making sure you say that it's not a food item and being very clear that if anyone consumes something made with it or consumes it directly, it's entirely their own doing. It's not its recommended purpose. So hope that answers the question. Yeah, 400 milligrams is the upper limit, the health limit. So any normal person shouldn't take more than 400 milligrams of caffeine in a day. So I've personally never approached that amount because even 200 would be quite a bit for me at least. But yeah, 400 is the official limit, at least in the United States. Being ADHD, replacing caffeine with methylphenidate. Now let me check. That's PCP, isn't it? Or am I missing something? I might be thinking of something totally different. No, PCP is phenylcyclidine. I think methylphenidine like one of those ones, kind of like, is it Ritalin? Probably Ritalin. It's an ADHD medicine. You already explained that in the comment. Yep, Ritalin. So, yeah. I tried taking a medicine for my ADHD. I didn't try anything like amphetamine or Ritalin because, again, I have a bit of a sensitivity towards stimulants like caffeine. My caffeine tolerance has gone up ever since working at Rebel for some reason. But yeah, it's still fairly lower than probably a lot of people. And it tends to show up in like my heart. Like elevated heart rate is the main thing, the main issue with me and stimulants. So they prescribed me, what was it called? Atomoxetine. So, and immediately after realizing what I was having, I started looking up like what it was and seeing if I could synthesize it for like a video, but no dice. Interestingly, the closest thing I could see to it was cinnamaldehyde. So maybe there's a way to work that into a video, making ADHD medicine from cinnamon. But yeah, I took that, and after being on it for a little while, I didn't really like the effects of it. And also going up a single flight of stairs sent my heart rate to about 180, and that was too much. So no ADHD medicine for Zach. Let's see. Yeah, side effects. They tend to be, that's kind of the problem. There is no perfect drug. Like in terms of, say, if you wanted to take a drug like one of the variety of drugs that exist, amphetamines, or I don't know, opioids, anything that makes you happy and causes dopamine. The problem is whenever a drug causes you to have elevated dopamine, your body becomes acclimated to it. No matter how perfect the drug is, it's still, your body's going to acclimate to those elevated levels of dopamine. So whenever you stop using it, essentially in any case, it causes a crash, and that leads to addiction and so on and so forth. So unfortunately, there's no perfect drug, no perfect drug for that purpose. But everything in moderation. Small amounts are obviously used to help with ADHD and similar things. But yeah, it definitely has, even there, as mentioning here in the comments, it has, even at ADHD doses, the small therapeutic doses, smaller, it can still have negative side effects. In my case, the atomoxetine, it was a serotonin-based one. I think it's an SSRI, so it was more of a serotonin type thing. But in my case, aside from the heart issues, it was more of like, the way it made me feel was essentially like, I wanted it. The reason I would take it would be for having ADHD. It helped with homework back whenever I was still in college. So it helped with that, because essentially it would be like, oh, I don't want to be doing homework. But with the medicine, it's like, oh, I don't want to be doing this, but I don't care. And they could just get through the homework and it's fine. That was kind of the issue, though, is whenever I'm doing anything fun, like say going on a tornado chase, then that was what I feared would be like, oh, this is interesting, but I don't care. So yeah, that was the other reason. Aside from the heart issues, even if it wasn't a heart issue type thing, I probably would have stopped using it pretty soon after, because I like to experience life to the fullest. I don't want to diminish that with something like atomoxetine. Just wasn't quite for me. And that was also, interestingly, that was apparently one of the mildest ADHD medications. So I do not want to know what my heart would have done if I had taken an actual amphetamine or Ritalin or something like that. But yeah. What was I doing? There's the ADHD. What was I doing? Yeah. Caffeine. What's the next scene? Move stuff over. My note here is various scenes of scooping caffeine. It's very descriptive. Okay. Where's my watch glass? Ooh, I need a scoop, like a little spoon to scoop it with. I hope I brought one along. I tried to bring as much of my chemistry gear up to this new property as I could, but inevitably there were some things that were left behind. So I'm going to have to search now for my spatulas and little scoops. Well, at least I can get the watch glasses. So, at least we got these. This looks like a job for the Petri dish. Yeah, hello. Not looking too good. Is there anywhere else I would have put it? No, I don't think so. Huh. I should have, I should have more. Let me check comments real quick here before I go on a wild goose chase. Let's see. Oh yeah, atomoxetine is a norepinephrine. It's norepinephrine, yeah, not serotonin. I think it might have had some effect on serotonin. I have to look back at it. But yeah, it was norepinephrine. Let's see. When are you making Red Bull? Well, I was hoping to get some made tonight, but it's going to be an issue. I don't have my scoops. Let's see. Am I attending open sauce? That was... So, unfortunately not. I wanted to. I might have been able to make it work, but having this internship and everything, I couldn't really ask off. I mean, I guess I could, but it probably wouldn't look very good. But yeah. Also next weekend, whenever open sauce will be happening, I'll be going back to Norman to meet up with another YouTube guy. He has a fairly small channel. He goes by TT, and he's a weather YouTube guy. So he just started. He's like probably at 100 subscribers at this point. And yeah, we'll go see him in Norman, Oklahoma. And I'm looking forward to it. Seems like a cool dude. Let's see. Wondering why you're in an odd location. Well, this place? Well, moved. That's the short story. I graduated and I moved. Now I'm at a location about 2 hours from my normal location, and I'm doing an internship. And I'm in Oklahoma, so that's about, well, at least 12 hours, if not more, from Open Sauce in California. EEV Blogs didn't get an invite to Open Sauce. I can't remember who he is. I feel like I've heard of him. He's probably an electronics YouTuber. But yeah, William, since I did the live stream with them, or not live stream, the podcast, the Safety Third podcast with them, William invited me to go to Open Sauce, and you'd be even one of the people that goes up on stage and presents or talks in the panel, essentially. That was an option. But yeah, that's looking like something I'll have to try maybe next year. Maybe if Red Bull turns out to be a big success like Coca-Cola was, then I'll get another invite. But, it is what it is for this year, unfortunately. Like Aussie Electronics guy passed 1 million subs the other day. Oh, that's not insignificant. I feel like he was, if I'm remembering correctly, he's kind of one of those sort of long haul YouTubers, one of the ones that like doesn't get insane views. I could be very wrong. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like he might be one of the ones that doesn't get insane views on every single video, but he just posts a lot of videos, and he's probably got like thousands of videos, if I remember correctly, who this person is, and having some successful ones in there has definitely boosted him up, and now he's got a million views. A million subscribers, I take it. So I think that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah, he's been on YouTube for 17 years. Yeah, that sounds that'll do it. If you're consistent and you have good content, 17 years, yeah, you could get 1 million subs. Yeah, drawn out repetition. Yeah. I don't want to be too repetitive with my content, but well, that would be an issue if I upload it on a regular basis. But obviously that's not an issue at the moment. All right. I better find the spoon. Otherwise, we are doomed. I don't want to have to go behind the thing. This is going to be interesting. Okay, that wasn't too bad. Oh, wait a minute. No, I see. I found it. Am I going to need anything else up here? Ooh, yes. Ugh. Come on. Okay. Well, it was in a separate box. Got it. Now where do I put it? That'll do. We have the scoops. Oh yeah, yeah. I did gain a few feet. Oh, I need to adjust the backdrop. It's all crooked. And we're back. Time to handle ungodly amounts of caffeine an hour and a half before I need to start thinking about going to bed. Well, actually, wait. 2 hours? I need to be getting to sleep around 10 o'clock so I can wake up at 6 o'clock. So I can get to work at 7 o'clock. Okay. You can go there. Excuse me. I'm just going to focus on. Oh, that's perfect. Yes. As long as none of the magic white powder gets up Zach's nose, we should be able to go to sleep in a few hours. I'm saying that like I haven't been slowly sipping away at this Red Bull. Okay. Well, this is going to be interesting. Gotta get all the way down here. Down here. Come on. It's very clumpy. I'm looking for some more powdery bits in here. Let's see. I'm just looking back at the comments, making sure I'm not missing anything. How long am I staying here? Well, so far it's looking like at least until late August 20th. But I kind of got called into the office of the manager people at the internship, and they said that they were looking at extending the internship and then, eventually maybe turning into a full-time thing. So might be staying here a little longer. If not, then I don't know, getting an apartment. We'll see what happens. This is just an Airbnb. So works for a short term, but it's a little expensive for long term. Okay. Oh boy. That's a lot of caffeine. Don't spill. I need to drop the ISO so it's not blown out because it's so white. So this is what I said about accidentally rubbing your nose. There's probably not a lot of caffeine, but your nose has a lot of blood vessels in it. So if any of this gets up your nose, it tends to go into your system really quick. And, you get that caffeine buzz probably a lot more aggressively than you would if you just ate this amount. So got to be careful where you touch whenever you are handling caffeine. I said various scenes of scooping caffeine. So apparently I'm going to need to position this a little bit different. All right. Try not to get any caffeine on the camera. Cool. Okay, any questions so far? Yeah. I probably won't breathe that in. Are we sure it's caffeine? Yes, we're pretty sure it's caffeine. I've been working with it for long enough to have a good understanding of its properties. I've tasted a lot of homemade Red Bull. Also, the supplier's fairly reputable. They test their product and everything, and it's pure. I actually have some of the data on it on here. So the assay for purity, HPLC, so high performance liquid chromatography, it is 98.5% to 101.5%. So, I mean, that's basically 100% is the average there. Melting point is right where it should be, 235 to 237. On ignition, the ash residue is less than 0.1%. Let's see. The heavy metal content is less than 6 parts per million. So that's reassuring. That's like sub microgram quantities in a Red Bull type serving. So negligible. You probably get more from your tap water. But yeah, the caffeine is pure. Well, based on the question, it might be questioning whether this white powder is the white powder we're referring to, which is caffeine. So I can assure you it is. It is not the white powder that is suggested to maybe be in Coca-Cola. Let's see. Nice. Not the sketchy eBay stuff. That's great. Not the sketchy eBay stuff. Although I do know some good eBay sellers. Backyard Science 2000. He's a great seller. He was one of the first people I kind of worked with as like a sponsor type thing, and he got me a lot of good chemicals for my experiments early on. And he still, from time to time, he sends some little things here and there. I honestly got to kind of work with some of these things. He sent like a lot of cool things like arsenic. I need to figure out something to do with that once I get a more permanent location and can set back up a fume hood. Maybe arsenic trichloride, pure arsine gas. Who knows? A lot of safety people freaking out probably. Caffeine is listed as a flavor. Can you actually taste, feel it? Yes. Caffeine does actually have a distinct flavor. It's not just bitter. I have some chemicals here that I'll be using in my caffeine-free version to try and mimic the flavor, but caffeine does have a distinct flavor. It comes across, it is bitter, but it has a bit of like a medicinal type of taste to it. So like if you make Red Bull and just add in a bittering compound to try to replace the caffeine, it still tastes off. You're missing that like sort of medicinal type caffeine flavor. It's hard to even call it a flavor. It's more of like a vibe. It's interesting, but yeah, caffeine does have a flavor, and you will notice that it's gone. Not so much in like say caffeine-free Coca-Cola. I tasted those two, and the amount of caffeine in there just isn't quite enough to be noticeable. But in an energy drink, yeah, you'll notice the caffeine's gone. So you have to be kind of careful with how you replace it if you want to get the exact same flavor, which is what I go into in the video. And I'm not going to give away here because you have to have something to look forward to whenever you watch it. No cadmium for me. I think I do have cadmium. I do have cadmium from Backyard Science 2000. I think he sent that. I'll let Tom from Explosions and Fire play with the cadmium for now, though, in his various glasses and heavy metal products. Those are always fun to watch. Let's see. Why don't people do caffeine the way they would the white powder in Coca-Cola? Well, the amount that you'd get by inhaling it, well, you could get a normal amount, but the effects are different. So the stuff you get from Coca-Cola, cocaine, what we're talking about here, I'm not afraid to say the word cocaine. Cocaine causes euphoria. It causes like a boost in dopamine. Caffeine does not. Caffeine, I kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, but caffeine, it doesn't have a dopamine hit the same as other stimulants. It's just kind of, it gives you the caffeine buzz, essentially. Like quinine and tonics. That was actually one of the things. So I have a bottle of tonic here actually, because that was one of the things I looked into to potentially replace the caffeine in Red Bull. The quinine is noticeably bitter. The problem is every single tonic or form of quinine that I could get is tainted. So it's not just carbonated water and quinine. Let's see. It is a sweetener of some sort. Either the diet kind has like aspartame, or this one has high fructose corn syrup, and then flavors, natural flavors. So they tend to be a little citrusy. I think orange is a common flavor they add. But yeah, it's not right for Red Bull. It's not the purity that we're looking for. But it's fun for shining a black light on. So, ooh, look. It's Nuka-Cola. I think somebody did do like a Nuka-Cola variant that was like with quinine, so it would glow under UV. That's fun. I actually got that UV light because some of the other ingredients in Red Bull, one of the ones is fluorescent. So I'll spoil a little bit. One of the colors that there's two color compounds that are in Red Bull. The first one is caramel color. You can kind of tell based on the appearance there. Let me see. There, that's probably good. So caramel color is one of them, but if you just use caramel color, it tends to come across very dead. It's very flat color, like very muted. So to bring up that sort of brightness and apparent luster is not the right word, but you know, the vibrance of this color, they add riboflavin, which is a vitamin. So interestingly, the bizarre colors you tend to get from these energy drinks aren't from like weird dyes. Typically, I mean, there's probably some that have like red 40 or whatever, but in like Monster and in Red Bull, that color, a lot of it comes from just a B vitamin. And interestingly, it is fluorescent. It fluoresces. It's kind of hard to pick up with the black light here, but you can kind of see it's kind of got like it tends to be yellow fluorescent. It shows up better with a blue like light source. So like a blue 420, I believe, laser, like what you tend to see Styropyro using. I have one of those, and it definitely shows up as like a yellower color. And interestingly, the high intensity of a laser tends to deplete the riboflavin in those zones. So if you keep it very still, you can essentially see the laser burn through the riboflavin. And if you move the laser out of the way, you can see like a path where it traveled and essentially decomposed the riboflavin. So that's a little interesting tidbit that I picked up as I was randomly messing with a blue laser one day and had an energy drink. Two things you probably shouldn't combine. I want to make sure this is not my caffeine hand. Let's see. Yellow dye number 5. No, it's all just riboflavin. Not to be confused with Robitussin. Yeah. Yeah. The other thing that's one of the things that I was looking into to replace the caffeine was also fluorescent and yellow, a lot like riboflavin, but intensely bitter. It takes only a few milligrams of it to equal the bitterness of 300 milligrams per liter of caffeine, which is where Red Bull sits. There it is. Berberine hydrochloride. This stuff is very bitter and intensely yellow. So perfect for Tom from Explosions and Fire. But yeah, got a secondary bag. Look at that. I promise you, no matter how yellow this appears on camera, it is infinitely more yellow in person. So yeah, you can see that. Very intense fluorescence. The label also is fluorescing, but yeah, it's fun. It looks like glow-in-the-dark powder from here. It's great. But yeah, again, it's not a perfect substitute because caffeine has a flavor, but this, along with a bit of modification to the recipe, got a pretty close caffeine-free Red Bull. Got to stop spoiling all of my content. Wipe off all the caffeine on my pants. Not uranium, no. Although, okay, I'm going to go on so many tangents here. So, having this little black light, I was walking around outside. The driveway here has a lot of rocks, and I was just kind of flashing it around. So I just happened to find some rocks that were, let's see, I gotta zoom in out a little bit so it doesn't blow up the camera. Here you can kind of see. A fluorescent rock. See if I can zoom it out. Ooh. Yep. I like to believe that this is uranium, but it's most likely not. The color here is not like the same green that you get from uranium. It is more of a, honestly, more of a yellow color. And based on some of the various ores that are around here up in northern Oklahoma, it's most likely a mineral called sericite. It's a lead ore. So, yeah, it's still interesting. But, yep. I don't know. More tangents for me to go down while I'm supposed to be filming. Calcite. Yeah, I guess it could be calcite. Only one way to figure it out, though. You have to extract it chemically. Oh, yeah. Bird crap fluoresces. Yeah, there's some other things out there. I think some kinds of mosses that I saw out there were a little bit like blue fluorescent, although they could just be piles of bird crap too. Yeah. Definitely don't take one of these into a bathroom near the toilet. I promise you, no matter how bad how well you clean your toilet, this will reveal absolutely everywhere that you do not scrub. Okay, probably also need to get one a little lower of the caffeine. Oh yeah, that's a good shot. Come on. Okay. Come on. Oh. Okay. Oh. No. There. That probably constitutes random shots of scooping caffeine. Back into the bag of fun. As a general note, it is typically frowned upon to pour chemicals that have been taken out of the container back into the container. But since this is a perfectly clean petri dish and I know exactly what this is and it's not being mixed with anything, it'll be fine. Also, I don't always follow the typical rules of chemistry whenever I'm doing it by myself. Obviously, because I have tasted my products before. The super caffeine. Also I also tasted the Coca-Cola, although that wasn't so much chemistry as it was just mixing various essential oils. There you go. Okay. Okay. Air conserve battery. Check back here. Drain clear and melted. Hydrochloric acid and drain clear and melted your toilet seat. What was your toilet seat made out of? Most acids don't really interact with plastic. I'm assuming it's plastic. Well, if it was a ceramic, I guess it could eat away at it. I know that hydrochloric acid eats concrete, or if it was metal, but I don't know. Following a channel called Cube Chemistry, breaks down elements in history. I think I've seen him around, at least on YouTube, not in person. It's a cool concept. There are a lot of neat chemistry channels out there. Yep, there definitely are. I kind of got lucky I was definitely not one of the first chemistry YouTubers, but I kind of came in at a sort of new chemistry renaissance on YouTube. So around the time that I started doing more professional chemistry, other channels like Chemdelic and Chemolius started doing their own more professional chemistry, and just kind of all happened around the same time. So all of our channels kind of are, climbing up the ladder at sort of a similar rate, and nobody else, our particular tastes in chemistry are ones that Nile Red and Nerd Rage and other large channels don't always approach. So I think that's probably the niche that we kind of filled, and that's kind of why our channels grew. Chemdelic was obviously more towards drug chemistry. Chemolius, obscure but very advanced organic chemistry. I think that's he hasn't posted in a while. I think that's kind of why he's maybe fallen off a little bit, is because some of his stuff was definitely more on the obscure side. I always found it very interesting, but the average person searching the internet might not find the videos because they don't know what they're searching for. Unless they're like subscribed to a lot of chemistry channels, then his stuff might not get recommended. That's all just my theories. Yeah, Elias Experiments. He's kind of also, he's not so much obscure. He kind of works with advanced tinkering. Advanced tinkering really took off because, he did a lot of shorts. The shorts really helped him take off. His main videos, I think they still only get like less than 100,000 views, although that might be changing now. He's got 1 million subs or close to. But yeah, his content though is really good for just viewing. Very photogenic content, especially like distillations of cesium and all that. It's very pretty chemistry. So him and what was the other guy? Apoptosis. He's got a little bit of obscure chemistry, some obscure stuff, but also just being so visually stunning. Also, Chemical Force. They're both visually good chemistry channels, and also they do some cool chemistry. Let's see. Nile Green should be avoided. Let's see. Nile Green 1 should be avoided. Genuinely terrifying experiments and practices. Oh yeah. No, I 100% agree. Now I know him. We were on like a chat together. He's cool. His name is, well, no. I shouldn't say his name. Well, I'm kind of digging myself into a pit here. His name is also Zach. That's what I was going to say. But yeah, he and I, we get along. 2 Zachs doing chemistry. but his practices, I mean, I've never been a big fan of like the chemistry YouTubers that go out and are like, oh, this channel's like being unsafe, because, well, I've been on the receiving end of that once or twice, which is merited in some cases. But, I don't want to be the guy that's like, the stickler for the rules. Don't do fun chemistry, do smart chemistry, or, that sort of thing. I like, pushing the limits, but, push limits safely. And then there's Nile Green. So some of the stuff that he does, like, say, for instance, the main one I keep going back to mentally is the chloroform experiment. He had a bunch of chloroform being produced from acetone and bleach, and it was boiling. So it was producing a lot of chloroform vapor, which is not ideal, but it's also producing acetone vapor. So what does he do? He lights it on fire. I mean, I've lit plenty of things on fire. I'm fine with a good beaker fire. This was more of a tub fire, and since there was chloroform involved, it was burning the chloroform, producing soot, and at the same time, part of one of the things that chloroform produces when it burns is a chemical weapon called phosgene, which is extremely toxic. So, yeah, thankfully he made it out of this fine. He didn't have any negative impacts, but like, why on earth? It doesn't make sense. But yeah, Nile Green, some of his stuff is just, it seems a little bit extreme in terms of like being done for shock factor more than the actual chemistry. A lot of his chemistry does seem to be fairly base level stuff, although he does some newer syntheses. I want to say, doing things on large scale, that's also something I've kind of have an interest in. I'd love to do like, a gallon of bromine or something like that, or a gallon of chloroform. It wouldn't be hard to do. I would just need like a 55-gallon drum and a bunch of bleach from the hardware store, and that would probably get a lot of views. So it's on the to-do list. But I don't know. He seems cool to hang out with, but in terms of safety, I don't think it's. I don't know if he's got quite the same idea as me about what would be a good idea and what's a bad idea. Yeah, phosgene. Let's see. He blew up his lab. Oh, are you talking about Thisoy? Yeah, Thisoy blew up his lab. Thisoy's kind of an interesting case. He seems like he gets a lot of hate for like his voiceover stuff. I don't personally have a problem with it, but his content to me just isn't as engaging. Just because I've got more advanced. I don't have advanced taste. That sounds bad, but I do like to see more advanced chemistry, and a lot of his stuff is more for your average viewer. It seems like this is what this is, and this is kind of what it is. This is what it does. He doesn't always. I think he made like he was working with he works with interesting stuff. Like, I think the one that burned his lab down was dimethylhydrazine, which is something that I want to make at some point. Not jinxing myself there, but it's, it's handleable. It's very bad, very toxic, but if you respect it, then it's just like, well, I made fluorine. Fluorine gas is top of the top worst, one of the worst things you could make. But if you respect it and you are safe about it, then it tends to be manageable. Which is why I wouldn't, make gallons and gallons of it, but make a few milliliters to show, hey, this is unsymmetrical dimethylhydrazine. But yeah, Thisoy is an interesting case. I can't remember how he burned down his lab with the hydrazine, but I feel like was he doing something unsafe? I don't know. he got a lot of hate around that time, I feel like, for that. So I assume that there was something he did that was not smart. I don't know. I have to go look back at all the drama. He knows just enough to be dangerous. Yeah, that sounds about right. Although I guess the same could be said for me. Although I did he could. I'm sure Thizoid probably graduated with something at some point. I graduated now, so now I'm officially smart. Yeah. All right. Let's see. What's the next scene? Oh, this one's an easy one. I just have to plop down a big bag of caffeine. Gotta get some water. Had some pizza and hot wings before this shoot. You all know the pizza thirst. Once you've had enough pizza. Okay. This will do. Yeah. That's good. I thought would be a cool idea doing like a live stream like this, except during an actual one of the experiments that I would be doing, but with like a 360 camera instead of like the web camera on this computer. Like hook up a 360 camera to the streaming thing, and then be able to just look around 360 live while I'm, say, in the garage doing a chemistry experiment or a synthesis of some kind. This isn't as interesting synthesis-wise because it's just mostly B-roll so far. B-roll and flat Red Bull. But yeah, I thought that'd be a cool idea. Nobody tell Nile Green. I know Nile Green does a lot of, Mr. Green now. I know he does a lot of live stream stuff. Can't have him stealing my idea before I do it. If he hasn't already. He probably has. Okay. Let me back this up. Oh. There we go. That's better. Oops. Yes. Although, yeah, that's probably good. Oh. Instructions say plop big bag of caffeine. Well, I think for this, I was kind of wanting more of like a Nile Green type vibe, like have some caffeine powder, like poof out of it whenever it plops down. Although I probably wouldn't use pure caffeine for that. If anything, I could use some like flour. But do I really want to make a mess right now? Do we make a mess or do we not make a mess? Chat. What do we do? Do we go for it? Do we make the mess? I already know what the answer is going to be. Yep. There we go. No airborne caffeine. No mess, be professional. We all know that's not going to happen. Professionals are allowed to have fun. We aren't going to make a mess with caffeine because well, I don't want to waste, and I guess to some degree it could also be dangerous, but I do have flour, and the consistency is pretty much the same. Now, whenever you go to watch the final video, you can all comment that you know the secret. That's not actually caffeine making the mess. This is caffeine, to be clear. So for this, probably get some in my hand, grab the bag, and then when I drop the bag, then it'll make a little poof. Yeah, save yourself the cleanup. Thing is, this is just like a little, I got a bunch of these. These are just like paper things from Walmart, like less than a few cents. So honestly, I'll make the mess. I'll wrap it up. I'll dump it in the trash can. If the backdrop can be salvaged, I'll reuse it. But if not, get another one from over there. All right. What does my camera see? Here's the caffeine bag. It's in focus. Okay. Don't want any stuff on the mat beforehand. Just recording. Ooh. Okay. I think that'll do it. Okay. Looks like we've suffered minimal casualties. There we go. Chemistry life hack. Always use disposable paper for your backdrops. I could do the sink because the trash can's kind of tucked away. There we go. Good as new. Nobody will ever know. Oh, you have to clean these now. My watch glasses got a little flour on them. I'm going to put this back before I elbow it onto the floor, which is almost inevitable for me. Okay. All right. What's the next scene? Well, let me check the comments. Move this back a little bit. Okay. I see retracted comments. I don't know what those would be. Let's see. Baking soda or powdered sugar to wash it off easier. Yeah, baking soda probably would have also. Honestly, baking soda might have been a better fit, texture-wise, for caffeine. Although, well, caffeine is pretty clumpy, a lot like flour. It's kind of between the textures. It's like a gritty form of flour, almost like it's powdered sugar. Powdered sugar is a good analog for caffeine. A little bit less clumpy. Caffeine's just kind of caffeine. So this is how the sausage is made. Yes. This is how the sausage is made. I could hire a videographer, but thing is, a lot of the stuff that I do, I kind of do at my own pace. So, and I also film all, kind of wherever I'm at. It's very me oriented, I guess. So getting a professional like videographer just isn't really a feasible option for me. Same thing for like the closest thing that I'm also very particular about, what I want filmed, and I kind of figure it out as I go along a lot of the time. But sometimes like on my emails, I find, people offering to do, say, thumbnails or like script writing type stuff. Like maybe they worked for Veritasium or someone like that. And it's a good offer, but it's just not quite, I'm not really looking for help at the moment. Would it be helpful? Would it give me more time to do other stuff? Yeah. But I like to have total control over my, output. I think they could do a fine job, but at the same time, I just don't know if it would be the same. It's also someone else to pay, and I don't want to have to deal with all that. That's kind of another reason why I take sponsorships, but I do so fairly rarely, at least now, because at least over the years, it seems like they've gotten more and more complicated in terms of like, you want this and this and this in this time period. If you don't get this right, you have to send it back to them and they have to reassess it. And then you have to mention this part of the product and this part of the product and this part of the product. It's just so much of a hassle to try and squeeze all in the video that it's just not worth it to me most of the time. There's some really cool offers that I've gotten, like say to get one of those 1000 watt not CO2 fiber laser type things, like for laser welding and laser CNC work. That was really tempting. The only issue right now is space, but also it required like a 240 volt 15 amp outlet, which is not the American standard. So until I have a workshop, I can't really take up those kind of offers. But if I could, yeah, I'd have to. That's just too good of an offer. You know how much fun it would be to have a 1000 watt laser. Although I feel like, honestly, bad news for Styropower. It seems like big, powerful lasers are kind of getting taken over on the internet. I've seen like for sale, like through probably, I was probably like Team or one of those other like weird sites to sell through. But they had like basically a handheld, the fiber laser was in it. It was like a 200 watt, like fiber laser, shoots an invisible infrared laser beam that can cut through rock and everything. I mean, how do you top that, man? I'm sure Styropower could get like 100 of them and wire them together to get like a insane laser output. But yeah, crazy output lasers are seeming like more and more common across the internet, especially with even Nile Red, like Nile Red getting the 1000 watt laser. I feel like that was probably a situation kind of like what I'm like, where I'm at. What do I have to use it for? Not a whole lot. Do I want a 1000 watt laser? And will I do the sponsorship bit for them? Probably. Although honestly, if I got it, I probably would have a reason for it. The reason would be welding something like aluminum or another metal, like thin metal. I do need to weld things. Like the plasma gun project, that's still an ongoing thing that I need to figure out. And a laser welder would probably help with that. So I could work it into a video. Nile Red, I don't know if he worked it into a video quite the same way. It seemed more like, hey, I got this, and now I'm going to show you it. It was like, I think it was Now Red Shorts that is where I showed it, or maybe Now Blue. But yeah, the 1,000-watt laser, the sellers are, I think they're targeting every big channel they can find. It's just cool. Styropyro firing things with batteries now. We need to tell Styropyro to wire those batteries in series. I want to see power substation level, multi-thousand volt, giant megawatt power level arcs. I need to see this. Self-banned the big channels that sold out to Big Corp. Yeah, Veritasium did kind of sell out, it seems. Even Mark Rober, it seemed like. I don't know if that's official or anything. I don't know if he officially sold out to a corporation, but Mark Rober does seem a lot more Mr. Beastized, I would say. Well, he does work with Mr. Beast every now and then, but he does seem a little bit. He still does science videos, but he seems a little more corporate, if that makes sense. Which I don't mind. I'm not going to be one of those people that's like, you sold out. But I don't care what people do with their channel, but it does kind of make it less my thing. So there's still videos of his that I like to watch, and other people's that are similar, but they become fewer and fewer the more they kind of shift towards that side. It seems like. Giant Tesla coil. Yeah. Quick shout out. There was actually somebody. Oh, I just noticed. I was going to touch my keyboard and it's all covered in flour. Yeah, get a duster. But there was a person that contacted me through email involving Tesla coil type stuff. His name's Colin. And there was an app that I used a lot when I was doing Tesla coil stuff called Java TC. And he essentially made a improved version of it, which he's still editing. Like I gave him like a few suggestions and I think he's implementing them. But I don't know if he wants me to post the link yet. I was going to, but he might want to still work on it a little bit. I don't know. But yeah, keep your eye out. I think it's JSTC is what his site's going to be called. But yeah, it was cool. He had like plots like showing the electric fields and everything. It was fun. Oh, look, it's my dad. He's found his way into the chat. I guess he's bored now. He's got done eating dinner with the family or whatever. Either that or he's just curious to see what kind of mess I've made in the dwelling area. Oh no, he's working. Yeah. Yeah. He's made his way into a few of my videos before. The thioacetone ones and the other smelly chemicals. He seems to show up. Also, there's all these gnats all over the place. These little gnats. He's also gone a few tornado chases with me. That's always fun. I don't think I got in this video. I could have filmed him tasting the Red Bull. No, he's not a chemist too. I'm actually not a chemist myself. Officially, my degree is chemical engineering. So, and my internship is under process engineering. So officially, I'm an engineer. But a lot of the LabCoatz stuff tends to be chemistry. So, and I do have a minor in chemistry. So it's a balance between them. I started off in chemical engineering in college. I actually switched over to chemistry for a bit to see if I liked it better because I like all the hands-on stuff with, LabCoatz and everything. And then it was similar enough to where I switched back to chemical engineering. And that made my 4-year degree turn into a 6-year degree. That plus failing one of my classes at some point. So what are you going to do? But yeah, not smart enough to distinguish the two. Yeah. For chemistry, a chemist is essentially like lab scale stuff. So, beakers and, well, this is a bottle. Doing laboratory stuff like, say, people want you to analyze this substance and this, that, and the other thing. Or maybe like, hey, we want to try this synthesis. And then your job as a chemist is to, do the synthesis or something along those lines. Chemical engineer is more industrial level. So where a chemist works with like flasks and beakers and stuff, chemical engineers tend to work with large scale, multi-million gallon reactors and other things on that sort of scale. In my particular case, I won't give away the company's name just because I don't know if they liked my YouTube channel. They don't mind me having a YouTube channel, but I don't know if they want to be mentioned at this time, so I won't. But I will say that they do work with ammonia. So I found that personally fairly interesting. It was better than the alternative, which around here tends to be the oil and gas industry, which is a little bit, I don't know, feels like saturated around this time. So yeah, that's the difference between chemist and chemical engineer. And to answer the question before about if my dad was a chemist, no, my dad is not a chemist. He is an X-ray technician, a mobile X-ray tech. So he goes around and he has a X-ray machine in the back of his car, and he goes and X-rays people. So I thought for a while there that I might do like a video with Dad's got to go. Bye, Dad. But yeah, I thought for a while there, since he has like an actual X-ray machine and X-ray videos seem to do fairly well on YouTube, I might do something with an X-ray machine, like, use it to X-ray something. I don't know. It seemed like a privilege to have access to, an actual X-ray machine that's not like jerry-rigged together and like you would find on, say, William Osmond's channel. But yeah, that was an idea. Maybe I'll go back to it at some point. But I don't know if it would fit with my current content. Any siblings? Yes, I have 3 siblings. I won't mention their names. Well, actually, if people search hard enough, they could find it out anyway. Because I mentioned on my YouTube itself that I mentioned names before. The one I mentioned before was my sister Mariah. I mentioned her on my root beer video, which got 2 million views. So that's at least common knowledge. I don't know if the others are common knowledge though, so I won't mention them. Just for, you never know who you're going to find on the internet. You never know who is going to end up hating you for some reason one day. So try to be safe. Yeah. No need to identify them specifically. X-ray potassium and see how it glows. I thought you said you left, Dad. Potassium doesn't, well, I don't know what you're talking about. You might be, is it like a dye that they use? No, that's barium. Applied science, yeah. I think he's done something with X-rays too. But yeah, X-rays are fun. Lightning on Demand, yeah, he's got a great channel. I think that actually is around the time whenever I thought of my idea for the plasma gun, or well, got back to my idea. The thing is, I've had this on the bucket list for a few years now. There's one channel, James H is the channel, and he has like an actual plasma gun that shoots a actual blast of actual plasma. It's not like a plasma gun like a thermoelectric gun. So like, you have a capacitor discharge and it propels a bullet. This actually shoots plasma like a few feet. And I think the highest power that he got to was around 2 kilojoules or around there. So I bought a bunch of capacitors and I want to do it at about the same level as a 50 caliber rifle and also do like an electrothermal gun type thing. So, a 50 caliber plasma gun. So that's on the to-do list. But yeah, the thing is though, with the plasma that he's shooting, the large scale projects, there's a large scale one that it's kind of based around. It's called Project Marauder. It was from the US government, and they apparently ran into the same issue, which is the plasma, even though you can shoot it and I guess apparently get up to a percentage of the speed of light with the plasma, it it imparts the same energy as the Project Marauder weapon imparts the same energy as like a I think a few kilograms of TNT, so a lot of energy, but apparently it reportedly caused little damage to targets because a lot of the energy got expelled as X-ray radiation. So you have a plasma EMP with some destructive capabilities, I guess. And that's kind of what James found with his. It would shoot plasma, and it would dissipate a little bit quickly. So, but it would hit things, and it could cause damage, but it wasn't like substantial, crazy damage. It could leave a discolored like little. It shoots essentially a toroid, like like a smoke ring gun. It's essentially like that, but a lot faster and a lot crazier. So go look him up, James H on YouTube. But yeah, it shoots like a ring of plasma, and it leaves a ring-shaped scorch mark, I guess. And it's hot enough to like scorch glass. It's I think he's burned himself with it before on accident. So it's not harmless. And at 50 caliber level energies, who knows what's going to happen. I know that for that capacitor bank, I'm going to have to design it specifically for like really low inductance so that the high amperage doesn't physically rip the metal apart. It's like what Styropyro went through with his battery pack. That much current can force the metal apart and cause problems. And also it can like lead to like eddy currents, like resistance, a whole bunch of things you kind of have to figure out. So that's interesting. Another one of my side tangents. Yeah, Lorentz force. Oh, Dad's still talking about potassium. He thought it was potassium. Calcium tungstate. It glows blue when X-rays hit it. Yeah, that sounds right. So it's like a phosphor. It's like with the UV light and the dyes that are in everything. Well, like in the tonic water. When ultraviolet light, which is less visible to humans, like you can still see it kind of like on camera, and I can see this wavelength. So another little tangent incoming. The way that you see things like ultraviolet and infrared, it kind of is like on a curve. So there's not like a specific frequency that you necessarily hit that's like, okay, here humans can see it, and if you go a little bit over, humans can't see that. It's like a curve. It diminishes. So at this wavelength, which is 395 nanometers, it's ultraviolet, but at this intensity, I'm shining it on my skin because my lab coat's a bad representation. This is kind of like what you'd see if it was at a wavelength that our eyes are sensitive to. So it's a bright flashlight, but our eyes see this, like on my gloves and my skin, which is not much. Our eyes aren't very sensitive to this. And as you drop the frequencies more, like to say that of a mercury vapor, like UVC type stuff, like 180 nanometers, that wavelength of UV you can't see. And the same for infrared. Like I have an infrared like little pair of goggles that has infrared. At the LED that's in that is strong enough to where I can actually see the infrared as like a dull, very deep red. And it's very bright in terms of infrared, but it's just not something that our eyes pick up very well at all, unless you're like looking at a very intense source of it, kind of like this. But yeah, X-rays you can't see, and I guess calcium tungstate is a phosphor, kind of like this quinine is a phosphor or it fluoresces with ultraviolet. Yeah, that's probably a good way to capture it. There you go. It's really cool. I love this sort of stuff. Yeah. Same with lasers. Yeah. I think even with laser wavelengths, the ones like the fiber lasers that they used to cut through stuff, CO2 laser type stuff, even at really high intensities, I don't think you can see those colors. So there is a limit to where humans can see, but it's a very slow taper off. And I think those really powerful infrared lasers tend to be decently below the cutoff to where humans can't see them. Unless they're like heating something up and causing it to be incandescent because it's heated up to white hot temperatures. Okay. It's been fun, but we have things to do. We only have officially about 30 minutes left on the stream before I have to start trying to pick up and get ready for bed. I've got to get past we got past the first page. Well, I have to come back and redo this one because I need the cola bottle, the lab cola bottle. But we can officially turn the page. Okay. Next one. Yeah. It doesn't look like we're going to get to the part where I actually make Red Bull today, unfortunately, for those who are curious about that. But hopefully we've all been having fun so far. Only looks like 29 views so far. Streams are an interesting thing. Like, my neighbor, or well, I guess since I moved up here, I guess he's my ex-neighbor, John, who runs the channel Mezzo Hunter. He's a weather channel type guy. He tends to get a lot of viewers on his streams. He's kind of built his channel around the streams, so he gets a lot of views there. My channel, even though I have probably, I think, 10 times as many subscribers as him, on a stream like this, since I haven't really done a lot of streams, looks like 10 times less views, active concurrent viewers than him. So it's interesting how YouTube pushes certain things for certain channels. Like, my channel is definitely more oriented around long form videos. If I try to do a short or a live stream, the views do not usually come in. But I don't care. I need to put something out right now. I can't just go for, how long has it been? 6 months? Well, that's since the Coke video. I don't know how long it's been since the taurine video. That's probably been at least a few months though. But yeah, I need to put something out. And streams are kind of fun because I get to talk to people. Do I talk to Darcy O'Neill? I've messaged before. He hasn't been very responsive in the past. I don't think I've ever emailed him. I might have. But yeah, we've communicated some. He's helped a little bit with like the Coca-Cola project. I definitely reference his work in the Rebel video. That's kind of because he has an energy drink video, and there are ingredients in there that correspond with Red Bull. The core Red Bull flavor is not in there, but it does have some of those flavors that he mentions. The main ones are methyl cinnamate, ionone, and let's see. The other one was vanillin, ethyl vanillin. Those ones are part of it. But yeah, the difference with his recipe and this one is Red Bull, most of its flavor comes from other esters. So like vanillin and methyl cinnamate and ionone, those are kind of here in terms of how much it is. The main ingredient is like a lot more. And some of you already know it, or at least someone that was on the stream commenting knew it, and probably another person. But what the heck? Let me see if I can get it out. Show everybody it. Here we go. All right. This is the chemical that's responsible for probably 90% of what you taste from Red Bull. Well, maybe not 90%, but a very big chunk of the taste. Like just smelling this directly, it gives you the essence of Red Bull. You think Red Bull whenever you smell this. You know, if you have experience tasting / smelling Red Bull. And it is ethyl butyrate. That's it. That's a lot. That's basically all of the flavor. The vast majority of it. I think this makes up like half or more of the actual flavor mixture. That's basically all of it. Pineapple ester? Nope. That's actually, well, I think it was reported that is found in certain pineapple mixtures. But whenever you smell it, it doesn't really come across as pineapple. There is one that does come across very strongly as pineapple, and it is in Red Bull, and it's called allyl caproate. So allyl hexanoate. Also, ethyl hexanoate is in there too, and it's similar in terms of what it smells like. But yeah, those ones are essentially the core, like fake pineapple smell / taste. They aren't in extreme amounts, but they are present in Red Bull, and they do impart an important flavor. Bye. Greg says bye, or Greg Liss. I'm not going to try to pronounce names. Yeah. He's pretty responsive in his Patreon. I'm guessing we're talking about Darcy O'Neill. Yeah, I think he is pretty responsive. I think he is a little bit more in terms of like his content. He seems a little more paywalled than I would like personally. I wouldn't want to put a lot of my stuff behind, Patreon, or like if you're going to put out a video saying, hey, this is the recipe for Coca-Cola or something else. Most of his recipes he puts out, he shows what's in it on YouTube, but he doesn't always show the amounts. I think for some he definitely does, but for some of them you kind of either have to become a patron or you're out of luck. So, that's not something that I can't complain about because, it's not my channel, but it's not what I personally would want. It's not something that I would do myself. Well, I say that. We'll see what happens in 5 years. But yeah, he is probably very responsive on his Patreon because that seems like where a lot of his recipes end up. Which I'm sure he has one for $5 a month or $10 a month. That's not bad, but still. The chemical that makes bees angry. Yeah, that's isoamyl acetate. It smells like it's the fake banana flavor. So yeah, that is also in Red Bull. There's a lot of esters that are in Red Bull. Won't tell how much any of these are, like in terms of what quantity goes into the Red Bull, because I gotta leave something for the video here. Okay, I think we've got time for a few more scenes here. Okay, I see. Where's my 8-ounce can? Need an 8-ounce can of Red Bull, and we need a 16-ounce can. Cool. Okay. I see. Okay. In this particular scene, there's a very interesting difference on the Red Bull label that I need to point out. So I don't know how many people have looked over the in nutrition facts for Red Bull, but there is a substantial inconsistency. And this isn't just like a little minor complaint. This is like something that's like, how does this make sense? So the things that are inside these should be in every way the same beverage. And they are. But the nutrition facts are just a little weird, let's say. So if you look here, this is an 8-ounce can, 8.4 ounce. And let me see if I can angle that right. The difference between the total carbs and the total sugar is 3 grams. So I don't know what it is that's in there, but something in here is adding an extra 3 grams of, I guess, carbohydrates to this. And thankfully, it doesn't appear to be anything that's important to the flavor. It might just be the propylene glycol that they use as a solvent for the flavors. I don't know. I don't think it would be, because that would be a lot of propylene glycol for this size. But, you know, I don't know. But the point is, there's a 3 gram difference. 3 grams. 3 grams of another carbohydrate in this volume. I should specify, in this volume. So in 8 ounces, 250 milliliters, there is a 3 gram difference between the carbs and the sugar. This is a 16 ounce, so basically double the size. And if you look here, oh, I changed it. There's a 4 gram difference between the carbs and the sugar. I'll get the 12 ounce can. That's probably a little bit. Yeah, there. The 12 ounce can shows it. Still a 3 gram difference between carbs and sugar, even though there's a completely different volume. This is a notably different volume. And I've done the math. There, even if it was a 3 gram difference, that should still show up as an amount that they could record on the can. So how is there a consistent 3 gram difference across all of their beverage sizes? I'm gonna check the 20 ounce can. Maybe that was what I was thinking of. Let me see. No, the 20 ounce can is different. So I don't know. It seems like I need to get a calculator and see where it is supposed to be. But yeah, if they're the exact same drink inside, which it is, I'm not doubting that, then the 12 ounce can should have a greater difference of carbs and sugar than the same amount that's in the tiny can. If this is all making sense. I hope this is making sense. I can be bad at explaining things. Well, now I can't use this one. This is a 4 gram difference. So I need to use this one. Yeah. Can be based on different sugars. That's kind of what I thought, like if it was glucose versus the sucrose. The problem is basically every other brand appropriately counts glucose as a sugar. So that's not what it could be. I don't think. Don't understand the problem though. It's not really a problem. It's just a problem for me because I needed to find the precise amounts to use for when I made it. And that kind of threw a wrench into things because it wasn't consistent. My workaround was basically just to go to, I think it was the FDA or one of the government sites that like is the official for Red Bull, like what they say Red Bull contains. That's where I basically officially found the amount for sugar, which is 108 grams per liter total. That's for sugar plus glucose. German and Austrian cans, 11 grams carbs, 11 grams sugar per 100 milliliter. See, that makes sense. It should be equal part, the carbs should equal sugar because as far as I know, they aren't adding any other carbohydrate to this besides sugar. If they were, they should record it. The only way that I could think that they could get around that is if it was under natural flavors. But even then, all the natural flavors are just esters. We couldn't detect anything different. The mass spectrum is very clean. It's not like Coca-Cola where it's like a bunch of natural products that have very messy mass spectrums. These are like clean peaks that indicates just chemicals, not like a bunch of fruit juice or something. So I don't know. I don't get it. In this case, for this amount, so it would take 4 of these small ones to make a liter. That would mean a difference of 3 times 4 is 12. I mean, it could be glucose. Is it? Do I need to change my script? Is that what they did? That doesn't make sense, though, because glucose is definitely a sugar. It would be counted as a sugar. And every other product, it's counted as a sugar. Is Red Bull being stupid? Or what are we doing? What are we doing here, Red Bull? Maybe it's just love. No, there is no love in Red Bull. Only chemicals. Only chemicals. That being said, Red Bull actually is healthier than a lot of sodas are. So comparing Coca-Cola to this, there's a lot of things in Coca-Cola that can lead to kidney stones. The fructose from either cane sugar being in the presence of phosphoric acid or high fructose corn syrup. Fructose can lead to kidney stones. The phosphoric acid can help lead to kidney stones. And then all the caramel color tends to not be very good for you either. Well, in high doses, caramel color can have problems. It's just not a very clean product, let's say. So, but there's a lot more of it in Coca-Cola than there is in like something like this. This is like, for a liter, this is like less than a milliliter of caramel color. It's like drops, basically. So this, the acid is citric acid, so that's not going to have the same sort of kidney stone issues. The sugars are glucose and sucrose, so those don't really have kidney stone issues typically, as far as I'm aware. And then apparently caffeine is a diuretic, so it helps keep things moving through your kidneys, let's say. So it doesn't give as much time for things to build up that shouldn't. So, and also it has a bunch of vitamins. So honestly, if you're going to pick up a soda, probably some of these ones are honestly not as bad as people make them out to be. The only bad thing, honestly, the only bad thing about these is the caffeine. But a small one of these, like this amount of caffeine in a small one, is less than what you get from, or equal to, like a cup of coffee. So if you drink responsibly, small amounts like this is probably the most I would typically drink. It's a small one of these. Then, you know, it's not bad. It's not as bad. It's a better option, potentially. Niacin is a terrible supplement. Well, it's just a B vitamin. What's bad about it? I'm sure there's going to be a reason. I think officially this is a It's in the form of niacinamide, is this one. But yeah, okay. Yeah. Okay, I've got to get. Oh, it's uncomfortable in high doses. Probably. That makes sense. Yeah. I think, well, one small can is apparently 100% of your daily value. So I know from my experiments and doing all this research, in 1 liter of Red Bull, that would be, it was, I think it was 0.39. So 390 milligrams of niacinamide. You have to check me on that in the final video. I'm pretty sure that's the amount, 390 milligrams per liter. So in this amount, it's a quarter of that. But yeah, it's not an insignificant amount. Apparently, this is 100% of your daily value. Okay, I need to record this bit. We're getting up on 9 o'clock. 3 grams related to caramel color. No, I couldn't be. That's a good thought because caramel color does tend to have some sugar with it, as far as I know. But the amount of caramel color in a liter of Red Bull is only like a few drops. So not nearly the 12-ish grams that you would need to match the labels. All right. Got to film this. Got to crank this out. I am a responsible adult. I do wish that the difference was the same across all of them because I swear that I got a 16-ounce one of these and the difference was 3 grams between the carbs and the sugar. But now it's 4 grams, which is still wrong by rounding standards, but it's not what I'm looking for. So I'm gonna have to compare the 12 to the 8. Okay. Because both of these say there's a 3 gram difference between carbs and sugar, which is, they can't both be. Back this up. Oh. Okay. I need to pick those up and drop them down and then turn them around. All right. It's go time. Are you not entertained? All right. Let's see. Drink 22 cans of Red Bull on live stream. That sounds dangerous. Even if it was the now you got me thinking. If it was the small ones, 22 divided by 4, 20 divided by 4 would be 5. So that'd be 5 liters of Red Bull. So 5 liters. It's like 1.5 grams of caffeine, roughly, I think. That'd be danger zone. And then, of course, well, there'd be a lot of liquid and a lot of sugar and a lot of vitamins. I don't think the B vitamins will be toxic in those levels. But I don't think you'd be having a very good time. Here's some noises out there. Sounds like explosions outside. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but maybe someone's lighting off some fireworks. Huh. I haven't heard any fireworks recently. Let me look out the window. I don't see anything. They're pretty noisy. Maybe someone's shooting them off for the 4th of July a week late. Oh, well. Let's see. Some more questions in here. I'll turn this off real quick. All right. Okay. Can the chem mentioned earlier be used to synthesize butanone? I don't know what chemical was mentioned earlier. Excuse me. I'm going to go out on a limb wait, are you talking about ethyl butyrate? I don't, maybe. If you do enough chemistry to anything, you can kind of make anything from anything. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say probably not. If you're talking about ethyl butyrate, you could turn that into butyric acid, but reducing that would either produce butyraldehyde or butanone, or no, butanol, not butanone. To get butanol or butanone, the ketone, you would need a different form of that. You need a different chemical. You need a different alcohol. I think you would need isobutanol, maybe. I have to look back. I have to refresh my chemistry a little bit. 5 liters. Forget about caffeine. Your poor bladder. Yeah, no kidding. That'd be a bad day drinking that much Red Bull. They found him. No, I don't think the explosions outside are Red Bull finding me. They sound very consistent and very far. I don't know if you can hear them, but it's kind of like boom, 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 boom. So I'm guessing it's like a firework display. It's been going on for a few minutes now. Let's see. Favorite thing you've made? Well, made chemically, I would have to say, mentioned it earlier, but the legal analog of methamphetamine, the Benzodrex, propylhexedrine, that one was fun just because it was a nice long synthesis. But, you know, I like a lot of my syntheses for various reasons. But physically made, I really liked making all the Tesla coils that I've done. Those are fun. But also the electric foundry, that one has been really useful. I've really needed high temperatures for a lot of things, and that has come in really handy. It's the fuzz run. At this time of day, it'd be wild. Yeah, well, here it's 9 o'clock, so sun's basically going down, so it is prime firework time. Cool dude, thanks for providing awesome content. Well, thank you very much. I enjoy providing content. I hope it's awesome. You hear some rumbling. Yeah, maybe you can hear it. Whoever it is a lot of fireworks. Actually, I think they just stopped. I'm guessing it was like a show in the town. Speaking of chemical, what's your favorite chemical? Mine is nitroglycerin. That one is pretty cool. Although, you might want to look into a close relative of it. It was nitroglycerin, the trialcohol. It's got 3 hydroxyl groups, and it's balanced. I think it's oxygen positive. Ethylene glycol nitrate. If you nitrate ethylene glycol, antifreeze, I guess, you get something similar. It's actually more stable. It's more abrasient, I believe is the term, more impact essentially whenever it goes off. And it is, I believe it was perfectly balanced, oxygen to carbon. So it's all converted perfectly into nitrogen and water and carbon dioxide. So don't ask why I know that. I think I was looking into it like a few weeks ago. It just popped into my mind. But my favorite chemical, well, I don't know. I mean, fluorine was really cool. That might be one of my favorites to synthesize was fluorine, just because it was so crazy. But fluorine's up there. Favorite chemical, it's hard to say. Water's pretty nice. I hate to be that guy, but it's extremely useful stuff. And you kind of need it to live. But yeah, I do like a lot of explosive things. I find they're really cool. Same for, I hate to say it, but poisons can also be pretty interesting, like nerve agents, those things. I wish it would be possible to work with something like show like a synthesis for something like that, but there's just no reason to show it online. Like there's no reason for me to make it other than for the sake of making it. Kind of like fluorine. I don't have a use for fluorine. I made it because nobody else wanted to. But saying that about a nerve agent, I think you're looking at jail time for that. Explosives, you can kind of pass off a little bit just because, you blow them up and then it's done. You showed them, good for you. But poisons, if you mess up, also with those, if you mess up, it's like explosives, but in the way that if you mess up, you could end up dead. And with nerve agents, it tends to be not a very pleasant death, from what I've gathered. So I find essentially all extreme chemicals very interesting, but can't work with them all. If there was like a university lab that's, doing work with something like that, they invited me out to show it, I'd love to do it. I'd love to show what something like VX looks like, just because nobody gets to see it unless you're like maybe in the military or something like that. But being able to show what something like that is, it's the same for like thioacetone. Nobody gets to see it. So if you get the chance to show people what this stuff actually looks like, granted, it's probably just going to be like a viscous liquid, not very interesting, but you know, I think it's interesting just for the sake of knowing what it is and getting to see it. Do you use any raw chemicals while cooking, excluding basic table salt, sugar, MSG? I mean, with Red Bull, I do with these ones, but in general, no. I'm pretty basic with my cooking needs. Get my sugar, my flour, my cheese pizza. But yeah, I could use things. I mean, there's plenty of extracts and things that are fairly pure chemically. Like fake vanilla is just vanillin. And then almond extracts basically just benzaldehyde and alcohol. So I find those very interesting, just because they're chemicals, and you can potentially use them for something. My dad says sodium. Yeah, that was the first chemical I really synthesized, or yeah, isolated, was sodium. Actually, first was probably chlorine gas, because I did electrolysis on salt water when I was like 8 or 9 years old. But yeah, arsenic compounds, yeah, those are cool. Here, crazy science news: the water is actually made of two liquids. Oh, water being composed of two liquids. I guess they might be talking about like hydrogen ions versus hydronium ions, or no, hydroxyl. So like having OH groups and H3O. That's probably what they're talking about. Just various split versions of hydrogen and oxygen in solution, essentially. Just had a look. One of the guys I followed legit just got done by the feds a month ago. Dang it. Who is that? I'm curious. And what they do, so I can avoid it. Let's see. Favorite element? Well, fluorine. That's pretty cool. Hydrogen's also interesting. Oxygen too. Oxygen has a lot of allotropes like ozone that can be really energetic. Nitrogen also. I might just say carbon because it can form a bunch of cool allotropes like diamond that are super hard, and graphene. It's a conductor. Graphite super useful, and also it's the basis of every single organic chemistry anything. So it's super diverse. So that's also a cool element. I used to not think so, just because I started off very basic with my chemistry knowledge. I was more of a inorganic chemistry type guy. But as I got more into organic chemistry, I kind of, I saw what the hype was about. Plutonium, that's a good answer. In the same vein as I wish I could handle poisons and explosives on video or anything else, I wish I could do stuff with like radioactive or like nuclear type stuff. It's just such a cool avenue, but you can't, you're not allowed to build a nuclear reactor. It's a no-no. The government will get mad. I guess you could make something like just for yourself and like hide it if you hid it really well, like in a big deep vat of water to where they couldn't detect anything. You might get away with it, but show it on YouTube, nope, you're done. So since a lot of my stuff is driven by wanting to post it on YouTube, it tends to keep me away from doing things I probably shouldn't, like handling nerve agents. I can't post anything about that, so not much sense in me making it just to see what it's all about. And besides, if anyone finds you with something like a nerve agent or nuclear material, good luck explaining that away. Oh, officer, I just wanted to see what it was like. I thought it was cool. Yeah, right. Nuclear can be easily to clear legally. The amount matters. Yeah, that's true. But talking in more like fissionable material like plutonium or uranium 235, those ones, I don't know if you can really clear those. I mean, unless, at least in the amounts that you need to create something that undergoes fission, like a nuclear reactor or even a bomb. Those things I don't think you can quite clear typically. Plutonium is like one of the ones that you can kind of get away with a little bit in the United States, like if you can get like an old smoke alarm source or something. But that kid got arrested in Australia for importing it. So yeah, nuclear materials tend to be very dicey. You can get radioactive stuff though. I know that the company I'm interning with, they and other companies like them, they use a nuclear source as like a level check. Like in a big reactor, they know they have a liquid level, and they want to see where the liquid is, and they use like a source, usually cobalt 60 or cesium 137, I believe, but something that emits gamma radiation. You can tell based on like how much radiation hits the detector, basically where the level of the liquid is. So that's kind of interesting. And yes, they do have to go through a lot of paperwork to get that stuff. Although, as a normal person myself, I doubt I could get my hands on a 1 Curie source of cobalt 60. You could probably get like a little tiny piece of like 1 millicurie or something, like a calibration source, I guess. But getting a large sample is I don't think a hobbyist could get away with that much. Somebody mentioned Uwo's lab. That's an interesting one. Chemotherapy is a toxin. Yes, you could, and people have. Chemolius made a platinum-based chemotherapy agent, so you can that you can kind of make certain. You can make poisonous things. That's not an issue. But once you get to like super poisonous things like nerve agents like VX, where basically their only purpose is death, then you can't really do that, as far as I can tell. You might. It's one of those weird things where I don't think it says anywhere specifically you can't have this, but there's so many restrictions involving it that it sounds like you can't have it. So why push your luck? Mustard gas, that was another interesting one. And you might be able. I wouldn't push it because YouTube is YouTube, and you would be reported very quickly. But you might be able to explain away like a nitrogen mustard, which is a chemotherapy agent. Basically, what you need is essentially like an ethanolamine, like a triethanolamine is the main one usually, and then you alkylate it, or not alkylate it, you chlorinate it with like thionyl chloride, and you get a nitrogen mustard, which is, it can be used as a chemical weapon, like because it's a mustard agent. It causes blisters, but it's also used frequently to treat cancers. So that could be a way to handle something that's that dangerous legally, but at the same time, it's up for debate if that would hold up in court. More than likely, I feel like you probably would end up in court over something like that, or maybe in jail. I don't really know. I don't want to find out. YouTube is good at being a fun police. Yep, YouTube's good at being a fun police. I'm going to close this. I don't think I'm recording anymore today. Yeah. Have to go to start getting ready for dinner soon. Might start wrapping up. Take some melatonin. That's an interesting thing. So, in the realm of psychedelic chemistry, melatonin is actually very close to a very extreme psychedelic substance called 5-MeO DMT. And basically, you can buy melatonin as a pure chemical through a lot of sources. And based on what I've studied chemistry-wise, it would not be very hard to convert that into a DMT variant. Not saying I would do that. I probably wouldn't, because I'm not really into the whole psychedelic type stuff. But could I see someone like Chemdelic doing a, like, how close can I get to the psychedelic, the scheduled substance? I could see him doing that. Chlorine trifluoride when? Oh, once I get a good, stable living area. That's probably the best answer. Because here, I'm renting. Chlorine trifluoride is not really a good idea for here. But once I have, like, my own house or somewhere where I can set up a fume hood and, like, create fluorine and do all that sort of stuff, then yeah, I could make chlorine trifluoride. I'd like to say in the next 5 years, somebody could, well, I guess advanced tinkering kind of already showed chlorine trifluoride, but that was laboratory type stuff. Yeah, landlord will either hate you or love you. Interestingly enough, the people I'm interning with, part of what helped secure that was the YouTube channel. Interestingly, I was worried about, if people would, if that would be a valid credential, or if people would kind of think it's kind of, oh, he's just a YouTuber. But they seemed interested in, like, all the stuff, and, like, seeing that I can, like, do the chemistry and I'm competent, essentially. So that was good. If you have chemistry YouTube, I guess you can and show that you're competent chemistry wise, then I guess that can help on your resume. Peptide chemistry. Yeah, peptides are chemistry. They tend to do it on, like, resins is what I believe. So you take various amino acids, as I might be getting this totally wrong, but it's like an amino acid. They have, like, a resin, and they use it to connect. The resin's like a catalyst, and it helps connect it to another amino acid. And then they keep doing that with the right ones until you get something like Ozempic. So yes, peptides, you might be able to make them with genetic means, like, growing them with bacteria or something. But these days, it seems like a chemistry thing. And I've looked into it. I would like to make Ozempic from such and such, or something along those lines. How much melatonin do you take? Well, I've heard that the store-bought sources are sketchy in terms of how much you get, despite them being from, reputable brands and everything. But officially, the label's 5 milligrams. So I don't need it, but it's been helpful recently. Melatonin has, because I used to go to sleep probably around 2 to 3 o'clock in the morning, and now I'm having to wake up at 6 a.m. So it's been helpful having melatonin to kind of readjust my sleep schedule to going to sleep at 10 o'clock, getting 8 hours of sleep, and then waking up at 6 a.m. So that's been helpful. There's a lot of people that seem to claim that it's a great supplement that, like, helps your brain or something, but sounds a little bit like, can you really trust the people that think that they know that melatonin's a miracle substance? Isn't everything a miracle substance at one point in its life? It's like peptides. Use peptides to make synthetic meat. Maybe, I don't know. take too much melatonin, it seems to work in reverse. Yeah, melatonin. So I mentioned before that melatonin is very closely related to the psychedelics like DMT. Let me see if my screen share works. Share screen. Let me see. Okay. I do a lot of searching incognito. Don't judge. So this is melatonin's chemical structure. Let me see. Where's my wiki article? There you are. There it is. So that, for people who are into drug chemistry, that structure should be setting off a lot of alarms. So that melatonin, and officially chemical name is 5-methoxy, so 5-MeO, N-acetyltryptamine. So if you essentially take that N-acetyl and replace it with a dimethyl, no DMT. So just replace this group and this hydrogen with 2 methyl groups, and you have this chemical. See the similarity? Just those little groups right there is all it takes, and then you have a psychedelic drug. Stop sharing. The point there is melatonin is very closely related. And from my experience, me personally, I know people have various effects from melatonin. Me personally, it tends to get a little weird if I have a lot of it and I wake up at night. So I don't hallucinate or anything like that, but it kind of puts me in that sort of weird in between sleep, in between awake place in my brain. And it can kind of trip me out a little bit if I wake up. So going to sleep, it helps me go to sleep really quick. It's great for that. But if I say wake up 2 hours into it, like say, I don't know, I have a cramp in my arm or something, just a random example, then if I wake up from that, then my brain is essentially working through the real world as if it were part of, say, whatever dream I was having. And it just doesn't make sense while it's happening. And it tends to like, it's a little freaky. So that's, it does seem to work in tandem with that sort of psychedelic, like essence, really, like altering your perception of reality a little bit, at least in my case. I'm sure plenty of people just kind of either makes you more drowsy, less drowsy. In this case, I guess it makes me drowsy enough to where dream and wake kind of are a little bit mushy. Never had melatonin. Is it good? Yeah. Honestly, melatonin is probably the safest sleep aid you could probably go with. Definitely don't use Benadryl to get to sleep. But melatonin, yeah, your body already has it. Taking it, don't take too much of it. There's not really, you can't really overdose on it as far as I can tell. I mean, you can overdose on anything if you try hard enough, but it doesn't really become toxic if you have too much. So yeah, if you take melatonin, it basically just sort of makes you feel naturally sleepy. Like you take it and then 30 minutes to an hour later, me personally, I'm kind of like, oh, whatever I'm doing, I'm kind of tired of doing this. I'm kind of just tired. I'll go to bed. So it's great for that. Can report. And I would eventually like to try to synthesize melatonin. I think it'd be a fun synthesis. Benadryl, yeah. Increase your risk of dementia. Yeah. Benadryl's another one of those weird ones. It's a dirty drug, is what you would call it. So it attacks a lot of different things. It's a deliriant if you take too much of it. So that's kind of where it leads to like sleep. But also if you take too much of it, it kind of goes in the opposite direction, makes you less likely to sleep. It can cause issues with your heart if you take a lot of it, like the brilliant people who take the Benadryl challenge. Yeah, Benadryl's kind of messy. I personally don't take it because, it makes you sleepy. I would never take it during the day. I would just take, a regular allergy pill. Loratadine, I guess, would be what it is. But yeah, melatonin won't work if you're on other medication. Yeah, I could see that. I guess it depends on what medication. If you take it with alcohol, which I don't think I've ever had it alongside alcohol, but apparently it can increase your sleepiness. So I wouldn't recommend it because there's probably some overlap between toxicological effects, like maybe depressed breathing. That'd be what I would worry about personally. I'm not a medical biochem type person, but that'd be one of the things I would be concerned about. But yeah, yeah, sleep medicine can be addictive. Well, it seems like a lot of sleep medicines, well, not a lot. I haven't really looked into sleep medicines, but it seems like that would probably go into the territory of things like opiates because opiates tend to be depressants. They make you relax. So I'm sure things that would make you relax like that, like to go to an old example of a sleep medicine, something like I believe a benzodiazepine, one of those types of things. Those ones are addictive. Like, oh, what's the name of the one? Xanax. Yeah, that's probably it. But yeah, don't take medicine unless you absolutely need it. That's probably the best advice I can give. I'm only taking melatonin because it kind of helps get sleep. And it's also just something your body already has in it. All right. Do we got any last questions, comments before we wrap things up? Did I apply to a PhD program yet? No, I did not. It was an option to go further with my education, but PhD just spending 6 years on a 4-year degree was enough for me. That's what I'll say. And also, they said basically when I talked to other chemical engineers before, they basically said that the next big like step in terms of like increased pay or anything like that really doesn't occur until you get a PhD. So like difference between bachelor's and master's is not as significant. It's there. It's definitely, you shouldn't just skip out on a master's if you're wanting a master's, but the difference is most significant between a PhD and the ones below it. So for me, it just wasn't quite my thing to do like a whole PhD. I'm perfectly happy working in a chemical plant at chemical engineer type pay. That's still around like probably $100,000 a year is what I've gathered is the average for chemical engineers. At least once you kind of get into it. I think base pay, like where I'm at now doing an internship, I think if you calculated it all up and took away the taxes and everything else, it's probably close to 70,000 a year is what it would be. Well, I don't know. It's only been a few weeks for me, so it's hard to say. But that's kind of what I've gathered. Any more questions, comments? I seem tired. I haven't even had my melatonin yet. Well, I guess it is getting closer to my official bedtime now. Now that I'm an old man and I go to real work. Still beating the median pay. Yeah, I'm not complaining. What do you do when the plant is already built? There's essentially a lot of projects, basically. Like the plant is there, but it seems like it's in a constant state of being improved, and things break all the time. Valves break. Um, I don't know how much I can say about like specifics at the place I'm working at, so I won't. But there are things that need upkeep, and we in my case so far it's been like this is having an issue. We need to look into potentials for either replacing it or moving it or something along those lines, and then contacting the right people to get the parts in. Things along those lines. That's a lot of what I've done so far. Obviously, once you kind of get more into it, like you're in the job for a few years or a year, then things might increase more. I personally probably not very good at answering the question. They clearly have stuff to do because they've been doing this stuff for a long time, but um, so far that's kind of what I've been doing is little project type things like that, and that seems like what they do themselves also, but they also do other things too. Always seems like a state of improvement. Basically, is what most of it seems like. He knows weirdos. He knows weirdos will watch him sleep. Well, that's how you get that ad revenue. Maybe I should just set the computer over there and let it stream the whole night. Yeah, melatonin seems like a good wind down aid. I'll go grab mine just because I need to get it in my system. There. I think it came from Target or Walmart. Just 5 milligrams off the shelf. But yeah, this is just like a quick dissolving type little thing. LabCoatz After Dark. Yeah, there. Just little. Now I should be ready to go to sleep in the next hour. For fluorine production, what issues did you have with HF that made it not possible to use the eutectic KF salt? So that's kind of what ended up happening. The potassium bifluoride is a HF KF salt combination. It's a mixture of hydrogen fluoride with potassium fluoride, but the hydrogen fluoride is bonded to it enough to where it doesn't, have an issue coming off until you heat it above like 300 Celsius, I believe. So the issues I had with not making anhydrous HF and adding it directly to potassium fluoride, the issue was that it's really hard to make anhydrous HF. I could have done it, but I was being a little cautious, so it ended up kind of not working. I believe the issue was I didn't heat the mixture of sulfuric acid and potassium fluoride or sodium fluoride. Yeah, sodium fluoride. I didn't heat the mixture enough to drive off the hydrogen fluoride and cause it to condense. So I got a little bit that came over. That probably was a bit wet too. Probably had a little water with it. I just could have the whole process could have been done a little bit better. But yeah, that's why I couldn't get the HF anhydrous in a large amount. And that's why I didn't make it. So I just resorted to buying the potassium bifluoride directly and not mixing the HF and KF myself. Blue light reduces melatonin. You know, I should probably turn off those lights. Oh, I look very pale now. Dude looks sleepier already. No, it's just because my face is closer to the camera and I'm not over there doing a bunch of other stuff. Probably. It is getting darker though. Getting more and more close to bed. But yeah, I'll probably start wrapping up here real quick. All right. You got any little last questions? Hopefully this isn't the last time we see each other before the video release. Well, actually, I should rephrase that. Hopefully the video release is soon and it doesn't take a long time or the next time we interact, I guess. I don't know. Maybe I am getting sleepy. Premiere? I mean, premiere for the video? I don't know when it'll be. Hopefully in the next month. The thing is, so I need to finish filming it, obviously, but at the same time, I'm also going to be making all the samples to mail out to people. And I'm going to try to make a lot of them. So I'm ready this time. When I did for Coca-Cola, it kind of got away from me because I didn't have anything made whenever I posted it. I didn't know how big it was going to be. And there was a lot of demand and I didn't have enough stuff at the time. So I kind of had to take it down, bring it back, and then, uh, you know, uh, thanks for the donation, Devin. Thank you very much. It's my first donation on a chat, or well, a live stream. Thank you very much. I will keep it up. But yeah, what was I doing? Part of ADHD is immediately forget. It's like for me personally, I'm a lot like you all seen Finding Nemo, right? We all know Dory. That's kind of like me. If I'm distracted, I forget things very quickly. So I take it I had a very good point, and then I said whatever it was that I was going to say. Let me see if I get any hints about what I was saying. I got ADHD and autism is what Chris says. Good for you, Chris. Everyone in my family, well, not everyone, my sister mainly, Mariah, the one that I actually mentioned before in another video, she always thinks that I have autism. I don't see it personally. I don't, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't see autism. ADHD definitely, but I don't think I'm on the autistic spectrum. I don't know. All right. If
That's how that works. If you're an autist, you don't generally see that yourself. Hmm. Huh. Maybe I do. The thing is, they generally, like my sister, they tend to acquaint me having an interest with science and stuff like that to having, I guess, more of a hyperfixation. I don't think it's a hyperfixation type thing because I've got a very wide variety of things that I do. I just happen to like chemistry a lot, but I mean, it's not the only thing I talk about generally. But that's why they think it. But I guess if the commenters see it and my other people see it and uncle sees it, sounds like I'm gonna need a professional diagnosis so I can officially say that I do or don't have it. Autism comes with a special interest that's constant. That doesn't sound like me. I think my interest tends to shift very frequently thanks to the ADHD. What else frames me? I guess I got a electric guitar. I like playing guitar. I like building things, obviously. I got the high voltage stuff. I've got a bunch of other projects, extreme projects, storm chasing. I like to garden, baking, cooking. I guess I just got a membership at a gym, so I guess working out now. And autism is not just about trains. Yes, that is true. Autism is not just about trains. Good morning. I must say good night. It is getting close to my bedtime. Do you have a bachelor's, master's, or PhD? I have a bachelor's degree in chemical engineering and a minor in chemistry. Ripped scientist. It's better than rip scientist. Everyone thinks I'm dying from the Coca-Cola people whenever they come to get me. I don't have the autism riz. Yay, I don't have the autism riz. All right. Right now it's 9:47. You all have about, I'll give you 3 minutes. Get any questions out that you want, then I'll end the stream here. Because I still need to pick up everything. Well, push everything to the side, and then go get ready for bed. So many unfinished projects. Yeah, I get that. Well, I have a lot of parallel projects. Where did you get your degree, if you don't mind me asking? I got it from the University of Oklahoma in Norman, Oklahoma, which is where I grew up and filmed every single one of my LabCoatz videos except for this one and I guess technically storm chasing because it was filmed wherever there was a tornado. Got married on the campus of Norman. Congratulations. Maybe one day I'll get married on the campus of Norman. If living in space, which orbit would you prefer? I don't know. Whichever one keeps me alive. Take care, bro. Good sleep. I will do my best. Sometimes sleep comes easily. Sometimes sleep is finicky. Depends on, I don't know, how high I have the air temperature set, I guess. I take it a lot of my audience is autistic, or at least everyone who's on the chat, or a lot of people on the chat seem to be. Night chat and LabCoatz. Yep, it's 9:50. All right. Well, good night to you all. It is 9:50 here in northern Oklahoma. I have filmed at least one page worth of well, let's see. We filmed one page out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We're about a tenth of the way there. That's honestly not too bad. I'm sure tomorrow, once I get off work, well, tomorrow I have a thing at the gym. So I don't know how much I'm going to get done tomorrow. I'll get some done at some point, but yeah. Less pages, less spoilers. Yeah. I don't think we had too many spoilers today. Oh, but yeah. I think that's about it. Thank you all for tuning in. Maybe we'll do this again at some point. Maybe with something else. Maybe with some actual chemistry. Maybe making the Red Bull stuff next time. Until then, remember to like, share, and subscribe. Have a good one. You too. And I will catch you hopefully sooner than a year. LabCoatz out.